Cool, Brent. Thanks for coming, man.
Danny, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm a huge fan of your content, especially your Instagram. I was ripping through all of your videos this morning. I must have spent like at least the last 8 hours out of the last 24 watching your TikTok, your TikTok feed. And you have a very unique way of approaching some of these conspiracies or fringe ideas that are very popular in the zeitgeist right now, but you come at it from a very level-headed, pragmatic way where like you don't seem like you're part of a cult. And a lot of these things that are popping on the internet, no matter if you're into UFOs or psychedelics or ghosts, these people treat these things like religions.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I think you point out very nicely.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of personal worth wrapped up in.
I think a little closer.
Yeah, there we go.
There
Cool.
go.
Yeah, a lot of personal worth is wrapped up in people's belief systems around these things. They may not have gone out, had a successful life otherwise, so they can latch on to something that is just doesn't require a lot of proof. Let's face it. You could be the more spiritual person in the room, the more, super whatever. You've seen lights in the sky that makes you special. It's like a proxy for achievement. And unfortunately, a lot of people get wrapped up in that and they become very vicious trying to defend those ideas when there's other people out there looking for the reality behind them. And it makes it very difficult to get to the truth of what's actually going on without the propaganda and the psyops and the culty behavior.
Yeah. I've noticed that a lot on this podcast. I mean, I've learned it firsthand from doing this podcast because I've been introduced to a lot of folks who have make a lot of extraordinary claims and don't have that same level of extraordinary evidence for their claims. And I've seen the reactions on the internet, whether it be like in the comments on YouTube or on X, how there's this pile-on effect to certain ideas or ideologies or, these fringe ideologies where like if you come at somebody, in particular, I think one of the biggest ones I've noticed is in like the Flint Dibble Graham Hancock thing, where there's like two polar opposite opposing nation states that are like warring against each other online is what it seems like. Yeah. And it's like I've noticed that in so many things, and it's really unsettling because it's really hard nowadays to know what's real and what's not real.
Yeah. Very true. And you're coming at it. I've seen quite a few of your podcasts, and you're very level-headed about things. And I know it must frustrate the hell out of you to sit on the other side of the table and have a Stephen Greer sit here and try to give you his narrative, and then chastise you, Daniel. If you'd let me finish, they're vicious about
fun
it.
Guy.
Now I don't know. You said Dibble with Graham Hancock.
Dibble.
I'm not
Flint Dibble. Yeah.
Not familiar with him. What's his stance on it? There's very good indication, at least to me, watching him over the last 30 years, that Graham Hancock is a controlled opposition from the British.
Well, there goes this podcast.
Okay, sorry. Yep. Anyway, okay, cut it, Steve. Yep.
Yes. So Flint, please continue. I'll give you. Flint Dibble is basically he's an academic archaeologist who went on Rogan's podcast with Graham to debate Graham Hancock's lost ancient pre-Ice Age civilization. Okay. And, whether there was evidence for it or not. And they went back and forth. And anyways, there's two aggressive camps that are violently attacking each other constantly.
And that to me just seems like the Hegelian dialectic. You get one side and you get the other, and there's not really any synthesis, but they're both setups, and they're both fighting against one another with completely opposite viewpoints on either side of the spectrum when the reality is dead in the center. Like there might have been an ancient civilization. It's not quite what Graham Hancock is making it out to be. Maybe not as old, maybe not as technologically advanced, flying around in Vimana. And there's, the academic side of things where like none of that actually exists, and just laugh at them and their lack of, educational.
Exactly.
It's nonsense. And it seems like a setup. It seems like a control mechanism for all of society. So we can never quite get to the truth of what the hell are we doing here?
So what were you saying about Graham?
Graham, so I've watched his stuff. When did he come out? Early 90s, at least, that I was made aware of him.
Yeah.
And I've seen him push things, and I, of course, wanted to go find out if what he was talking about was true, like Zecharia Sitchin or any of these people that make extraordinary claims.
Yeah.
And the things I've looked into, the history I've looked into that Graham has also looked into, I've come to completely different conclusions that were much more middle of the road,
Really?
rather than like 10,500 years for the Sphinx. There's other explanations for why the weathering would exist around the Sphinx enclosures, though it's not what the academics are talking about on the other side. So it's both sides are wrong, but there's enough overlap that you never really get to the middle of what's actually going on.
I had actually Flint on the show, and we discussed Atlantis,
Okay.
and like all the evidence for Atlantis. And one of the unique things about Flint is his background revolves around, or his academic history, his academic scholarship focuses on Athens. He's an archaeologist who focused on Athens, excavating all over Athens and in Greece in general. And he excavates back to the time when there would have been any kind of Atlantis. He goes like as far back as anyone. And he says that they've gone all the way down to bedrock.
Yeah.
And there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So like if there is some hypothetical Atlantis or some sort of crazy super advanced lost city, he seems to believe that especially according to Plato, if you want to take Plato his words seriously, he was a philosopher who came up with hypothetical ideas like the cave.
Yep.
So he thinks that was some sort of another allegory to some sort of like war game between Athens and Atlantis. And that's one of the things I found real compelling. But like you said, he also will just outright dismiss and laugh at things like those stone vases that are perfectly symmetrical and supposedly came from the dynastic Egyptians with stone chisels and
we could talk about
copper
those
chisels
later.
and stone pounding stones.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. I've read the Timaeus, or the Critias and Timaeus, Plato's, and it's allegorical to me, at least my reading of it. But
did you read the English translations of it?
Yeah, old though. I try to go to things in the 1800s if I can find them before things started being really propagandized.
Right.
And I tend to find like when Ignatius Donnelly started writing about Atlantis, Atlantis, the antediluvian world. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
I'm familiar with it, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like he was an early disinformation person himself that was pushing things off. It was in every Freemasonic library out there. It was very popular among that group, became very popular among the Theosophists, and there's not really any substantial basis to that being like historically accurate.
Right.
But there were things historically that came before the rest of these civilizations that are being covered up. We're finding that with like Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah.
Right now, things that were like, we don't know any history that went back that far.
Mm-hmm.
You can get down to bedrock all you want, but there's other areas of the world that they might have migrated from that were completely wiped over.
Yeah.
So, and I think that was the start of organizing history in a very certain way that we have today. That started around 1900 around 1900, late 1800s, early 1900s. They started rewriting the older books that talked about like there were giants in mountains. There were different things that actually were there beforehand. And then you started to see that erased a bit more. So,
what do you make of the whole giants being found in America?
I think there was cross-cultural communication. I think there were colonies here for Europe, Asia, not the Chinese, Egyptians. The Egyptians had cocaine and they had tobacco in their systems. They found mummies that had legitimate testing that was done on them. That almost lost the woman her career, that found that they had cocaine and tobacco in the mummies. That's scientific. Like you can't refute that. They got it from somewhere. So somebody had to be coming over here and communicating with North and South America, getting that. There was a copper trade. There was, a trade back and forth. You have stories about expeditions from Egypt going out to faraway lands that would bring back like pygmies and things that were living in Central America at the time, the Aleut and the people around the Yucatan Peninsula that are semi-mythological, but the remnants are their little houses and such for people that are just shorter people, smaller people. The people that were the giants that were here might have been people coming over, trading with them that were 6 foot and taller, because if you go down to Mexico right now, I'm a giant. And, we'd all be fairly large. No offense to anybody. But that's what I see it as. So I don't see it as 7 foot, 10 foot, 20 foot people that were, hidden around the world. I think it's just people that were taller that, that became embedded in the myth and legend.
Right. So you've been following Graham Hancock for quite a long time.
Yeah. Geez, I think I started looking at this stuff when I was 10. And
Wow, really?
watching like In Search Of and all the stuff that was coming on TV. And I was a kid, but then I started going to libraries when I was got into junior high. We had a really good library, research library for. They had all kinds of things like Ignatius Donnelly, and I would sit there after school and read all these things. So I started early doing like actual research into these things.
Have you read all Graham's books?
Most of them, yeah. I kind of fell off the last few years because I kind of wrote him off a little bit.
Did you really? What do you think was the main reason, or like the straw that broke the camel's back for you for starting to not take him as seriously?
He really doubled down on the age of the Sphinx, the age of, all these things being 10,500 years old, much older. And then I found the work of Dr. Davidovits in France about geopolymers and how the pyramids were actually created, and how he replicated pyramid stones and did scanning electron microscope tests on the segments, and they matched up directly with the pyramid. He proved that they were younger, actually, than 10,000, younger than what we even think, that they were made with a completely different...
The stones in the pyramid?
The stones
the limestone?
Yeah. If you go to... some of the evidence he's got is that he's directly replicated that, but he's a chemist. So he works with geopolymers and sustainable materials for building materials. And he's done some of the work on trying to figure out how these old gigantic structures were made by pouring them. He's found things within like the famine stele that talk about the Egyptians crushing up stone and creating like molds for these blocks and building things out of building stone that never existed before, making it out of mixtures and agglomerations of things they were finding in the localized area. And he went back and did it. You talk about the vases and the schist discs and all that. And I was just in Egypt just a couple of months ago, and I saw these at the Egyptian Museum myself. He's got some sitting in his lab right now that he replicated that are exact replicas of these things with the tolerances that we
the vases?
The vases and the schist discs. And
how did he create them? By doing what?
Making essentially a type of... it's a type of clay, but there's several types. There's one that's like limestone based that would make pyramid blocks. There's another type that is like a ceramic, like a bioceramic that was used to make these things. And I'm sure there were many more that they used historically, but he found a few of them that he has replicated, and to my mind, replicated what the Egyptians were actually doing.
But out of granite, like red granite and rose granite and these things?
Well, they're not granite to start with. So
the original Egyptian stone vases,
sure,
like that?
When they re-agglomerate them together, you wouldn't know the difference. There's video. I could even send you the video. He's doing a symposium in July. We're going over to it to actually make these with him. He'll sit there in the lab and mix it up together, and you form it yourself, and you can make these things with it. And it's just one step further from that to pottery.
Right, so, right. But what I was saying is like the ones that they found underneath the step period, those were step pyramid. Those were made of granite. Yeah,
but there's no reason to think that the granite was mined out of the ground and carved.
Right.
It could have been made out of an agglomeration of things that replicate granite that you wouldn't know the difference.
So you think they could have recreated some sort of faux granite or fake granite and molded it?
Yeah, I don't even think he's proven it. He's got, like, I don't know why this isn't more accepted or known about, because he's got like a textbook about it showing how to do it yourself.
Wow.
It's
what's this guy's name?
Dr. Joseph Davidovits in France.
Joseph Davidovits.
If you want to come over to the symposium in July, just come meet us over there. Head up together.
Wow, that's fascinating.
But he actually did a video. Oh, geez, it's an old video. It's got to be from the 90s now.
Well, what do you make of like some of those giant structures in Egypt? You've been to Egypt?
Yeah.
What do you make of those giant scoop marks they have out from like that big pregnant stone, or the pregnant woman, or whatever it is?
Yeah, you see scoop marks.
And then also in the Serapeum, I think there's scoop marks out of the granite boxes.
Yeah, so you'll see that all over the world. You'll see handprints, you'll see all kinds of footprints, things in solid stone. You'll see that in South America. And he's done work cross-culturally to find out what the acidic, there's agents that dissolve, acids that dissolve. And then you can re-agglomerate these things. He found in South America, it was like they were using guano, and there was a trade route to go to the coast and get guano and take it up to the highlands and create these Inca structures. It's using the correct acids, you can let it dissolve away.
Right.
There were stories that they found a bird, the pedo bird in South America, that would chip away. It would take this take a leaf and go up and rub it on the rock, chip away at the rock, and create it burrows, and that's how they learned to do it.
Yeah.
But then they took these same plants, and you found out that it creates certain types of acids that could dissolve the rock and make it soft.
Wow.
So turn it into a type of clay.
It's getting hotter than a $2 pistol down here in Florida, and while you may be staying out longer during these months, you no longer have to stink it out thanks to our sponsor, Mando. Unlike other deodorants I've used, Mando lasts as long as I do, keeping up with the gym, jujitsu, and even for long trips. What makes Mando so different? It's a cleansing bar and it controls your odor for 72 hours, and that's perfect for long hours at work or hiding from the feds. It's safe to use on your pits, package, cracks, and feet, and it comes in bourbon leather, Clover Woods, Mount Fuji, or Pro Sport. And don't forget, this was made by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated.
But Danny, why should I use this over soap alone?
12 hours after a shower, the average man's grundle odor was a 5 out of 10. After using Mando, the average grundle odor was a 0 out of 10. You can literally smell the difference, Steve. Mando is so good you can now get it in Walmart and Target. But for the best deals, go to shopmando.com. Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. And as a special offer for our listeners, new customers get a $5 off the starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack by using the code Danny at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please support the show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. It's linked below. Now back to the show.
Yeah.
So that's the direction I think it's going in.
Yeah.
There's a lot more work to be done in it, but
I think that one makes the most sense. I think they were highly advanced in chemical technology,
Yes,
with
me
making
too.
chemicals. And I think some of those pyramids, I think it's highly possible that all of the pyramids, or if most of the pyramids, I would say, were involved in chemical production.
yes. Well, I've seen Jeff. Like I know
Yeah.
Jeff from Land of Chem.
Oh yeah, Land of Chem, Jeffrey Drum. He is fantastic. He's one of my. That is one of my. I think if I had a gun to my head and I said pick a theory,
There you
I
go.
would think
Yeah.
it would be his.
Yeah. Shout out to Jeff. Jeff and his
Yeah.
wife, really lovely people.
Yeah.
He's coming at it from the right direction of trying to find like the technology behind it, the science behind it. I tend to agree with you. I'm not sure. I have my pet theory that the pyramids were illumination chambers, for the mystery school tradition. But I agree with a lot of what he says. He's come at it, and I think he's living there right now, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's in Egypt. Yeah. So he knows a hell of a lot more about it.
Yeah.
Boots on the ground than I do even.
Right. So you did a comprehensive deep dive on this latest thing going on with these shafts that were found in the pyramids by the that radar, those space. What is it called? SAR or
SAR, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's some kind of tomography.
aperture radar or something?
Aperture radar tomography or something that the actual technical specifications doesn't go deep enough that it would even be able to pick these up.
So is this all some sort of advertising scheme?
So the guy that did it, his name starts with an M. You'll have to forgive me. I forget his exact name right now. But he's an Italian guy, and he's with a group of other academics in Italy. You can go check out the video that I put out about it that translates their press conference.
So did you get AI to translate the Italian?
Yeah, I know a little Italian to read it and translate it. So I went through and I did that, and then I touched up it, through it. And I tried to get to it as quickly as possible because they just released it the night before.
Oh, wow.
So I did that, and his reputation in Italy isn't the best. He's known as like the Stephen Greer, the shyster of Italy, essentially selling a lot of nonsense. Yeah, and we have Italian people jumping in the comments saying, "You don't know the history of this guy. He's been doing this for years. He's been selling all this." So I don't know him.
What's his name?
If you go to my YouTube page, actually, it's right there at the top, and it's got the
cool.
write up on it.
Okay, yeah, I'll find it.
There you go. Corrado Melange.
There you go. Pull
Yeah.
something up on this guy.
Yeah, he's into all kinds of things, including alien abduction and all this. And I don't know the guy. I'm not Italian. I don't know his material as much.
Right.
But I've been warned against him about his stuff. But without that, just looking at the evidence, it's not compelling to me, not in the least. They did the scans. They published the scans. They're publishing more of them. But what they're seeing in the scans, and I go into it in my TikTok video about it, that like we know that the King's Chamber exists in the Great Pyramid.
Right.
They did scans on the Great Pyramid, and those scans don't even show the King's Chamber. So like They overlay it, and you can't even see the King's Chamber in
Really?
their scan. Yeah, you can check it out on the actually
With the same exact technology.
same technology. It was 2022 they published it.
Now, didn't they scan some sort of underground bunker and it was able to detect it, or some laboratory,
anything about
an
that.
underground laboratory, maybe?
I'm not sure about that. Yeah.
Okay.
So that might be floating out there right now, but I don't know about that claim.
Okay.
I do know that this type of technology, unless it's loose soil, it can only get a few meters, but certainly not, hundreds and hundreds of feet under the bedrock Giza plateau to see these spiral chambers and shafts. And I'd love that to be true, because I've been to spiral shafts that exist that are like that. The Well of St. Patrick in Italy, the initiation chambers at the Regaleira in central Portugal are shaped like that. It'd be cool if there was that's a Templar facility then in Portugal. It'd be cool if there was a crossover between the two, but I don't think there is. I think they put this through an AI to make a video rendering of what might be there, and it's not at all accurate.
And wasn't it related to some YouTube channel or something that put it out?
Yeah, actually, I don't know if you could pull up my TikTok or my Instagram on that, and I show her. I think it's Expedition with Nicole Chicolo.
Okay.
So you could pull that right
And
up.
and then so she was in charge of doing like the press release for it, or
Yeah,
what?
and it's totally like a woo-woo, site. You could, actually, if you look up Expedition with Nicola Ciccolo, Ciccolo, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, find Nicole Chicolo on YouTube, Steve. So she's like a YouTuber who just does research on ancient civilizations and talks about ancient.
I wouldn't call it-
talks about Egypt.
Yeah, I wouldn't
specifically.
call it. You'll see. I wouldn't call it
Okay.
research. I would call it trying to sell new agey crap.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's not a researcher. She's not. She's not.
Oh
Here we go.
no!
Pull up her official.
Go to
channel.
her YouTube channel, Steve.
And there she is above the
Oh.
pyramids.
So Expedition with Nicole Chicolo. Click on her bio. It's in a different language.
Yeah, but if you scroll down, it's a grab bag of everything you could imagine.
This is what people say when they scroll through our YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, mine too. Yeah, I shouldn't be throwing stones here in glass houses. But there's the guy on the right with the sunglasses. That's the doctor that brought this out.
Oh, okay.
And
Let's check him out, Steve.
I've read a few of his.
It's not going to be in English. Never mind.
Yeah, I've read a few of his papers that were in Italian about
Okay.
occulty esoteric things. And I don't necessarily disagree with it. He tends to agree with me about the pyramids being initiation chambers, things like that. But the scans, they just don't add up for me. They're not showing what I think they're claiming they're showing. So they might have done scans, but questionable veracity.
So they're just the ones that analyze the scans, or were they the ones in charge of doing the scans?
Yeah, there was a group of them. There was him. I think he led the charge to do the scans, and then he's got an archaeologist and an Egyptologist along with him in that press conference that are trying to, one's the technologist behind the scans, and the other one is the Egyptologist to say what that might actually be. He's claiming it's the halls of Amenti, which is like the halls of the afterlife, the Elysian fields, where you would, where your consciousness would go after you die. And that was always considered mythological. They're saying that the halls of Amenti are now underneath the pyramids, and these big shafts go down to it. Anyway,
There you go.
Well,
No
Halls of
comment.
Amenti.
Yeah.
Let's ask Billy what he thinks.
oh, jeez.
Good old Billy.
Is it Carson or Carlson these days?
It's Carson.
Is it Carson?
It's Carson.
You sure about that? You might want to check out
Tucker Carlson, Billy Carson. Oh, don't get me confused.
Karlson. There seems to be some controversy about Billy. Funny story about Billy. When Billy was talking, I forget if it was you that I stitched. Billy claimed it was either you or it was Joe Rogan. He was claiming that the Moai on Easter Island burnt down.
Yes.
And then I did a video standing in front of the Moai because we went there last year, and I was like, "That's not real. They're right here." There's
Really?
Yeah. We were there. Laura's probably laughing.
Yeah, he was explaining to me how I think multiple people said that to me, how there was a fire there and they shut it down.
Yeah, there was a brush fire. There's cattle ranching about a mile away. There was a rancher, and it got blown, and the brush fire. It's only like low grass. It's only like maybe 12-inch grass.
Yeah, I
And
was
it
going to say, how do you burn stone statues?
But he was saying that like fuel was taken in tankers and they burnt the place down. His exact
Oh my
claims.
God.
And it didn't. It went up to the area where they were mining them out of the one crater, and it you got a couple of them. They actually found one that they didn't know was there because the brush got burnt away. So they found one, but all it did was singe a couple of them. But there's hundreds of them on that island. So it's but they didn't burn down. No, sorry.
Yeah, when it comes to the Egypt, those new shafts that they think that are down there. I mean, I wonder how hard would it be just to dig under that pyramid? It was under the middle pyramid, right?
Yeah, it was the center one.
It wasn't Cheops.
No, that wasn't the Great Pyramid. It was the center pyramid.
Right.
It would probably be really hard to.
I guess they were all on. It was Flint, and then this guy Jimmy Corsetti, and this other guy Dan Richards, and a bunch of guys were all on Piers Morgan debating this. And Flint was like, "You can't dig; it's sacred. Do not dig under the Giza plateau."
They dig all the time.
I know, right? They've been freaking blowing it up with dynamite since the 50s.
Yep. Oh, earlier than that, man. The entryway to the Great Pyramid right now was blown out by somebody way back.
And they're saying this goes like 1.5 miles deep?
Something stupid like that, hundreds and hundreds of feet, yeah. And then there's big stone coffers, stone chambers underneath of those spirals. And if you look at if you actually look at the scans, it doesn't show any of that.
No.
And you can look at the scans of the Great Pyramid, and the Great Pyramid scans don't even show the King's Chamber.
The SAR scans?
Yeah. Yeah, they put out a paper. They published one paper in 2022. I don't know if they published this study completely yet, but what they showed in the press conference wasn't convincing at all.
And you translated the whole press conference, posted on your YouTube channel, so people can watch it.
Yeah, go judge the evidence for yourself.
And what did they have like an ultimate conclusion at that press conference of what they believe it is or what their next steps are going to be?
They think that it's the halls of Amenti, and that it's
they believe
that. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, they believe it's that, and they need to push forward with it and get funding and all of this. I'm sure there's more. It was a 2-day thing. The second day, I'm not sure if it's been released yet, but the first day, their upfront conclusions, their get to the point conclusions was the halls of Amenti.
Oh wow.
Which is horseshit. It's like Plato's Atlantis again. We get right back to it. And I'd love it to be true. That'd be amazing.
Steve, find the SAR scans of the Great Pyramid.
Yeah, you could type in his name, Malanja, and you can find his published research on I'm not sure what repository it's on, MDPI or something.
Yeah, so I guess that would be the top one, Steve.
MDPI, right in the center. Here you go.
Yeah, there you go. Blow that thing up.
There you go. Well, you can click on it and get the whole published.
So
study.
I don't see. So yeah, it's very, very vague.
It's extremely vague. Yeah, and they're claiming that there's an entire series of structures in there that just I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve. If you click on the link, go to visit, and actually pull up the paper, you can get the. There should be an option there to pull up the whole, download it right there. Download PDF, upper left.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And that's what they actually have. That's the actual data.
No one reads this stuff, man.
Of course not.
We just like the headlines.
You gotta be a nerd like me. There you go.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's just an image.
How crazy is that? How crazy are those granite freaking blocks in the King's Chamber?
They're awesome. Yeah, and it's. The pyramids do something very interesting when you measure the magnetic fields inside. They basically nullify the Earth's geomagnetic field while you're in there. And it links in with a lot of my other research on videos I put out about Kozyrev mirrors and the work of Dr. Michael Persinger of how it could affect consciousness. So that tends to be my pet theory, but based on what I've been there and measured that they actually do. When I go on expedition, I bring a magnetometer, infrasound devices, various things to actually measure the, quote, energy of the place, but in a scientific fashion to see if it would have any biological impact on the mind, on brain function, as we know that the magnetic fields do, like our mind-to-mind system. There you go. That pulses a magnetic field around the head and can alter consciousness, like the God helmet, if you've ever heard of the God helmet, Persinger's God helmet.
What is the God helmet?
Okay, so this is a good one. Dr. Michael Persinger, actually, pull out his research.
Yeah.
Here's his research. Persinger was a black ops scientist for the longest time. He was working with the Navy, figuring out consciousness, the patterns within the brain that cause things like senses of spirituality, sensed presence, senses of meaning, various things. And he mapped areas of the brain, like the temporal lobes, the hippocampus, that correlate. And if you read some of the titles to those studies, he found things like entanglement. So he was the first person to, I don't know if you ever heard about this, to take a person in Canada and take a person in Spain, and he put these headsets on them, And he flashed a light in the eyes of the person in Canada and picked it up on a brain scan of the person in Spain, proving that they could be entangled.
What year was this? Did he do this?
Just it's right in there.
Really?
I actually have the studies. I came prepared. There you go.
Wow.
But those studies came with a lot of other findings. The God helmet was something he created, I think it was all the way back in the 80s, certainly the 90s that they were talking about it publicly.
If you're constantly on the move or just tired of skipping meals, Huel has you covered. They are today's sponsor, spelled Huel, and their Black Edition ready to drink is a game changer. It's a complete meal in one bottle with 35 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals, high fiber and low sugar, so you feel full, focused, and ready for the day. No prep, no cleanup, just grab and go. Huel's already sold over 500 million meals around the world, and now it's your turn to try it. New customers get 15% off plus a free gift at Huel.com when you use my code Danny. For me, I'm always on the go and I don't want to have to pick between fast food or starving. So I bring Huel everywhere I go. For me, it's easy. I always keep one in my backpack or in my truck. It tastes like a milkshake, but it's not overly sweet. They come in vanilla or chocolate, which is my personal favorite. And after drinking one of these things, I literally feel full. And it's not a burst of carbs or a protein brick, so it's the perfect balance for me. It was designed by experts to provide all the ingredients your body needs for a meal. It's cheaper and more convenient than a burger, so for me, it's perfect and a balanced choice for a meal on the go. Start saving time and money without compromising your nutrition today with this exclusive offer for new customers. New customers visit Huel.com/Danny today and use my code Danny for 15% off your first order plus a free gift. That's code DANNY at HUEL.com. 15% off plus a free gift for new customers using my exclusive code Danny at Huel.com. Please see our description below for terms and conditions. Skip the stress, not the nutrition. Try Huel today.
That could replicate out-of-body experiences, sense presences, like you're sitting there in a room, a dark room.
This says 2015.
2015. Yeah, well, he's been doing it for he's since passed, unfortunately, but he was doing it for decades.
That's crazy.
And there's another one in there as well where it's they were sharing the experiences of people playing a video game, and somebody who was an expert at the video game was giving the other person their ability with the video game through entanglement.
Consciously or unconsciously?
Unconsciously. You put this around. This is the actual device that he was using.
This is the God helmet?
This is a small version of it, pared down version. Steve can, there it is. There's the God helmet. Motorcycle helmet with a magnetic cylinders.
I have seen this.
Yeah, and he was making people have all kinds of wondrous spiritual experiences, replicating the brain patterns when they're under those experiences. And this is a very small, pared down version of it. You put the halo around your head, turn it on, and it's the same equipment that they were using for the entanglement experiments.
So what specifically does that, when you have two people hooked up to that thing, what specifically is happening?
Persinger's theory was, you could consider it whatever you want to call it, the morphogenetic field, the Akashic record, whatever. We have names for all this field that we live within, the conscious field. Consciousness being external of the body and the brain. But we tap into it. Our nervous system is a transceiver. It's a transmitter and a receiver. Part of the receiving portion of that is we're immersed in this field, and we share our experiences, and we can go out and remote view and tap something we have never had physical contact with. We can also do the same for things people have touched. He had somebody he was studying that was able to do that with a picture of somebody. You can also go out and communicate with somebody's experiences and brain and memories. And that's what he was proving in these experiments. And this was all, it's like he had a coming to Jesus moment later in his.
So this is amplifying the antenna of the human, sort of?
It's blocking the area, blocking the signals within the brain that keep you unaware of it, because we always have it. We're always immersed in this, but we have something called a binding frequency in the brain, and if you block that correctly with a magnetic field over the right hemisphere, it can open up all kinds of interesting things.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
How did he find this?
He was working for the government for the longest time, and I was about to get to that he was he kind of had a coming to Jesus moment later in his career and released it all. He just went, here it is, guys. This is what we found. This is what it all is. This is how you build the equipment. You can go out. He did a talk that I actually put on my YouTube called No More Secrets. What would a world be like if you could remote view, know what the other person was thinking? If there was no way to keep secrets from one another, what would that civilization look like?
That would be ugly.
That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Yeah.
I think it'd be fucking ugly.
Yeah. Yeah,
I know
tend to
people
agree
like
with
Joe. People like Joe Rogan talk about it all the time, and he thinks it's
Yeah.
like a really good thing. Like he always speculates, like, what would it be like if we could read each other's minds? He seems to think there'd be no deception, there'd be no lies. But like
the people funding that research don't agree with it. They want to cybernetically link minds together as a form of control to make peace. You know, yeah. The way you ultimately get peace in a civilization is to have a cybernetic linkage of all the minds that negates their ability to have violence.
that's fucking terrifying.
Here, we could talk about that too. Here's
So-
the Changing Images of Man. That was the Stanford Research Institute think tank paper published by Ghislaine Maxwell's father that talks all about it.
What?
Yeah, have fun with that.
Do with that what you will.
Welcome to Museum Material, kids. This is what I do. No, that was published back when they were doing the remote viewing experiments.
By Robert Maxwell,
Yeah, his publishing, the Pergamum Press.
publisher, Robert Maxwell, MC.
Yeah, he personally funded that one. Stanford Research Institute was doing all the remote viewing experiments with Ingo Swann, Pat Price, all these guys, and it talks about that as how to take that and weave it in with a new agey belief system that could ultimately replace all the old belief systems and be used as a tool of control for the new world where everybody's cybernetically linked. They had Joseph Campbell, the mythologist, trying to figure out how to create new mythologies for the world, and that was the blueprint of how to create the new world, the new civilization. And that's it kind of links back to what you asked me about Graham Hancock, why I kind of fell off with Graham Hancock. I saw a lot of these people that I grew up with in their research weaving in far too closely with that kind of research and realizing, oh shit, that's part of the agenda.
Part of the agenda.
Seems it, yeah. Giving us a far-flung history we can never possibly completely understand, and it's all going to be mysterious. Everything's meant to be mysterious forever. You're never meant to get any answers to anything. And it's all part of the control mechanism. It goes way back.
What a mind fuck,
What a mind
man.
fuck, yeah.
Holy shit.
So you wonder why in my videos, I have different opinions about this. I might look at something and you might look at something and we come to radically different opinions.
Yeah.
It's based on context like that I might have seen something that it goes, well, the funding came from the same place that funded that, and Graham Hancock might have gotten money from here, or some researcher might have gotten money from the same place. And I go, is that connected? Wow. So I tend to be a little more cynical about things because of that.
Well, I mean, just looking at where we've ended up today, and like the state of the internet and the state of reality, really, because like even reality itself is so fucking slippery now. Like nobody knows what is real.
I agree with you.
You go on X and now like people, everybody has their own flavor of the JFK assassination and what they believe is real, and you're a shill if you don't believe that.
Yep.
And it's like, then you have the people who are like, if the government tells me it's raining outside, I would have to go out front and check to make sure they're telling me the truth. Yep. And oh my God. And with all like the political attacks from every single side, and there's who knows how deep that fucking thing goes with all the different elements of people involved with purposely manipulating information online and just throwing out tons of stuff and saying, good luck picking out the truth. And then like, even going back to what you were saying about this theory on tying together people's minds so we can read people's thoughts, and there will be no deception. People will be able to communicate pure intention. Like if you look at a writer, or if you read anything that somebody writes, people aren't just writing down their thoughts and ideas perfectly coherently the first time, right? There's an editing process that goes through writing, and it's slow. When you have thoughts in your head, it's a chaotic clusterfuck of ideas bouncing back and forth, right? And walking down the street, seeing something and having a thought bubble up into your consciousness isn't necessarily something you would want to communicate to somebody, right? And there's also like, it's not always the best to just tell people what pops into your mind at any given time. That could cause a lot of problems, some of which we've already seen with the development of social media to where it is, where people can just automatically tweet out what's popping in their mind. At least there's a barrier, right, of their fingers and like typing it in and reading it before you press send. There's somewhat of a barrier. But if you completely remove the barrier of this chaos that's happening in here and teleporting it right to your mind, that can't be good. I can't imagine.
We've seen a massive change in society just since we lowered the barriers to being able to put whatever the hell you want out on the internet.
Yes.
So like
and look where that's gotten us.
Yeah, it sucks. It's ridiculous.
So even remove that barrier anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're just going to amplify what's happening right now in society, I think, by like a million.
I tend to agree with you. Have you watched the newest season of X-Files with Dr. They?
No.
Dr. They, yeah, Steve might be able to pull this up. He's a character, a bit part character they brought on that was meant to represent that. He's the mysterious they. And he talks to Fox Mulder and he's like, what's real? Nobody knows anymore. It doesn't matter. You're going to believe what you want. I'm going to believe what I want. And it's all mixed up where I could put the truth in front of you and you wouldn't even recognize it. There he is. Yeah, it's a great episode. It's funny. He's got this bit part where he talks to Mulder about it. And he's like, it doesn't matter if you know the truth anymore, or if we release it or if it gets leaked, because there's so much garbage out there, you wouldn't recognize it anyway.
Right.
And it's, and taking people's mental barrier down to be able to, we've linked up with the mind-to-mind system with some groups that were like, you don't want to be linked up with some people that are in certain mental states.
What do you mean?
You know, it feels schizophrenic. It can. Yeah, you can. We've done the Shambhala Initiative sessions. I don't know if you read about that in the write-up we sent you over. It's
I think I read about it, but I'm not familiar with what exactly it is.
About 2 years ago, we started the world's largest open source psychic experiment. Using the equipment, we taught everybody how to build these for free and put out instructionals on how to build these for free. We offer a kit and we also offer the pre-made device. We did the Shambhala Initiative sessions every week. We did lives where it allowed people to link up and do psychic testing among one another and among us, sending something out to see if they'd pick up on it. And the results could be very sporadic. Generally, they were wonderful. We had a really interesting result where hundreds of people all at once within the month beforehand saw Trump getting shot at. So they came with like exact details of what was going to happen right ear, different things like that. Where it was very obviously people were sharing the same thought somehow, and they were getting it from somewhere. And we did multiple iterations of this testing. But we've done testing on small scales with people at like New Age fairs. And you're like, the person sitting across from you very obviously is kind of out there. And linking up with people like that can be like quite a head fuck. It feels schizophrenic.
Really?
Yeah, it really does. So to that point, generally it's great. It's wonderful. And it opens things up. We have people that are using this. They know what their kids are doing at home. They'll call them up and be like, stop doing that. And the kids will be like, how did you know I was even doing this, Dad? We get feedback from people all the time that like it opened up precognition, clairvoyance, telepathy, and like just an overall sense of things like aphantasia, somebody who can't see visualizations in their head. They don't see like pictures. Like, I don't know if you do. Or,
really?
Like I see like a full rundown like Tesla. Like I can turn things in 360 in my head. Some people can't see that at all.
Is that called like a photographic memory?
Not even photographic memory as much as being able to model like a hallucination in your head of a device or a soda can or something like that. Yeah. And some people can't do that.
Interesting.
And using certain equipment, doing this, we've had people report that they were able to finally visualize and see things in their head and they didn't know what was going on. And we thought that was a really interesting, it's almost like it's a rehabilitative effect. Can't make that claim, but we were being reported that. And it seems like a very interesting thing that if somebody's opening up parts of their mental ability, their consciousness, what else opens up with it?
Yeah, what else?
Do you become a fully formed human, a real boy? Stop being an NPC. You can actually, start to see the world for what it is.
Yeah, I just wonder how much of like just modern technology and society that we live around right now is suppressing that sort of stuff.
Every bit of it.
You know,
even the frequencies coming over the. Have you seen the video on the Lily wave?
The Lily wave?
I did a video called. It was on John Lilly. Now, people who are into entheogens will know all about John Lilly.
Oh yeah, I know about John Lilly.
He was doing ketamine and
he was doing a NASA-funded research on dolphins with LSD.
Yeah, NASA and naval intelligence, and he was apparently he fucked one at one point. That's bad. But the guy that was giving him the ketamine was Louis Jolly and West from MK Ultra.
Oh yeah,
and he was getting it from Jolly, and he came up with get away from his seedy background. He came up with a wave that if you pulsed it over a 60 hertz electrical the wiring within a house, it could control the human mind. It could basically shut you down and turn you into a walking zombie where you don't have full control of your faculties. And they found the Lily wave. Pat Flanagan actually analyzed what was coming through his wall, and when Lily was coming to visit him and said, this is coming through my wall. What is that? And Lily's like, oh, you found my wave. I did a whole video on this. It's
Lily, I mean, I didn't know
it was
Jolly West knew about electromagnetics and stuff like this.
Okay, we could get into Jolly and West. Jolly, he was involved. He was part of the oversight committee for the Stanford Research remote viewing experiments. And he was doing that with overseeing Dr. Christopher Kit Green. There you go. We could get into some interesting things.
Oh, really? He was working with Kit Green?
He was his mentor, apparently.
What?
That's what I heard. And Kit Green went to bat for him in a couple of statements where people were asking why Jolly did what he was doing. And yeah, Kit Green was involved with that. He's the one that was doing those brain scans on people who were getting directed energy weapons, allegedly shot at them on Skinwalker Ranch. The guy that leaked that to me was one of the guards on Skinwalker Ranch, Chris Bartell. And
oh, really? He gave you this book?
Leaked it to me, and I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I never came public with that because I didn't know if it was disinformation they were trying to get me to run with, because I had come out with too much before that.
Sure.
They put me under surveillance. That came along with a PDF that had a virus on it, so I could only imagine they were trying to get access. Oh, yeah, they were trying to get access to my computer. Yeah. So it's like, it's disinformation.
They put you under surveillance?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we went out to Mount Wilson Ranch, where Bustamante went out to.
Yeah.
And we went out with Carl Crusher, went out to Mount Wilson Ranch. They tried to get me to kind of go along with their being let off in the left field with their stories. And
who brought you out there?
So I got the invite. So I released videos about the guys that were getting brain damage at Skinwalker Ranch. Bartell was one of them, but you had the guy, Tom Winterton, that was on the Search for Skinwalker Ranch show. Yeah. He came with the big goose egg on his head. I did a video on that, and it triggered the shit out of the people at Skinwalker Ranch. To this day, I re-released the video a couple months ago, and Brandon Fugel tried to do a big, damage control comment in the comments of that video because I released something they didn't want released. Okay. So then they wove in with a content creator from YouTube to contact me and say, hey, I'd love to do something with you. Come out, we can go to the Mount Wilson Ranch. I'm working with these guys. I didn't realize at the time that he was intimately working with Brandon Fugel at the time, who owns Skinwalker Ranch, talking to him all the time. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know the guy's history. This is Carl Crusher. Don't want to get into that relationship or anything, but we had to shut that down after some seedy stuff. But they had me go out to the ranch, and there was not a goddamn thing on the ranch. I did a lot of research into what was going on there with, there's a company that put the instrumentation in at Skinwalker Ranch, Sarah, Dr. Richard Dickout, and Dr. Tim Rinn, who were putting equipment on Skinwalker Ranch and Mount Wilson Ranch. Not equipment to monitor high strangeness, equipment to fuck with the human mind, non-lethal weapons and psychotronic weaponry. And it looked more and more to me like they had been experimenting on the staff at these ranches, and one of them was Chris Bartell. Well, I'm out there, and this pops up there. I woke up. We were all staying in Carl's house. I went outside, and they're looking at this on the computer, and it's like, what is this? And they're like, oh, yeah, we'll send you a copy of it, whatever. And they sent me a copy, and it had a virus on it. And I go looking through it. It looks like it's 50-50 mixed, neuroscience that would hook me in with UFO shit that there is no way to validate whether or not that's real. But a lot of the stuff in that is like a mixture of names I could research and different things that could hook me in, and then the rest was I couldn't validate it, so I wouldn't release that. But I think they were hoping I would go along with it and push that out to the public and push that as like an MJ-12 paper disinformation piece.
Oh, wow.
And so I was getting played, realized it, and cut out of that. Met with the guys from History Channel on an expedition to that ranch, and it was like, this is not real. they're pushing nonsense here.
So what did you mean when you said they put you under surveillance?
Literally, they were watching all my social media, texting me constantly. Tried to put they had my phone numbers. I would get random texts and such when I'd put a video out to say like, hi, things like that, and it was coming from a Utah number. I'm like, okay.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, that's just games, just little games.
Interesting.
And it's going to take a lot more than that to shut me the fuck up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Skinwalker Ranch thing's super interesting.
Yeah.
They talk about that a little bit on the Mirage Men documentary.
Yeah, I watched that coming down on the flight. Actually.
Did you?
I rewatched it for you. I saw it years ago.
We talked about it on the
Yeah.
phone when we first spoke.
Yeah.
But in that documentary, they claimed that they were basically, there was some sort of operation where they were doing subterranean nuclear blasts, trying to like frack for oil.
Yeah, Plowshare and Gas Buggy.
Right, gas buggy. I remember that one. And I guess they were trying to test for nuclear contamination in like the vegetation and the livestock. So they were trying to cut out specific glands of the cows. And people thought it was super freaky. Could have been, it must be aliens. Plus, they were doing test flights right over the same area, and they were seeing these crazy UFOs they'd never seen before, which was just like the CIA or the Navy doing like secret tests. So they thought, oh, crazy shit in the sky we've never seen. Mutilated cows, must be aliens.
Yeah, that's
So it was like the perfect right place, right time psyop.
Yeah, I did a video about this cattle mutilations with showing the book by Com Kelleher, who was the guy that was the second in charge at Skinwalker Ranch. I don't know if when they were doing NIDS there.
Oh, okay.
So Com Kelleher was like their biologist that was working with Bigelow. And he did a book on, it's called Brain Trust, I believe, about mad cow disease. And he's got, most of it is about mad cow disease and CJD. And then there's a part in it about cattle mutilations, just magically in that book. You pull that up, Steve, too. It's called Brain Trust by Com Kelleher. And where he kind of drops the bomb about like, is cattle mutilation aliens, or is this people going out doing clandestine testing to find out if these have prions? You know, if you ate from that population, is it spreading throughout the natural population? When I went out with those guys, Chris Bartell actually told me about the nuclear testing, and I remember him telling me about the cow that has a window in the side. They put a plastic window on the side so you can see its organs at one of the museums. Yeah, they had a cow that like they were testing on, but it was like a public thing where you can go and just check out the cow, see that the cow was doing fine, that it hadn't been influenced by radiation, but it really had, and it was just part of a propaganda for that. But there's an aspect of that. I don't believe in the cattle mutilations, though I used to. I used to be terribly fascinated by it. The more I look at it, the more it looks like a black ops program. Yeah. Special forces guys coring out the assholes of bovines in the middle of the desert. And you're like, what a weird job to have. But it looks like they're testing for something, either radiation or prions or whatever it might be.
Okay, let's go back to let's go back to Kit Green and Jolly West. So Jolly West was Kit Green's mentor, you were saying?
So yeah, so apparently they were both like the life sciences guy within the CIA. So Christopher Kit Green is like, in my opinion, in my mind, he links in with all of this shit.
Doesn't Jacques Vallée talk about him a lot?
He does in Forbidden Science.
Oh, okay.
Linked in with UFOs, with psychic research, and everything you can imagine, up to and including like possible manufacturing of these things with GM. Okay, this
General Motors.
General Motors. This goes weird. This story goes weird. So, Kit Green of Michigan. I've done a lot of research on this guy. He was working with the CIA, working with Stanford Research during the continuation of the MK Ultra experiments. That was the Stanford Research remote viewing experiments. Jolly and West was part of the oversight committee for that with SAIC. And they were working together on that. Then somehow or another, it spins off into UFOs, and Kit Green getting involved with UFO groups that Bigelow was starting up, different things like that. They had the UFO working group, the Onion group, the secret Onion group that Jacques Vallée calls it. Colonel John Alexander was involved with that. All these guys were involved with that group. And it kind of spins into creating the entire mythology around UFOs to cover up for other things. Somehow or another, Kit Green retires from the CIA and goes off and works for General Motors Asia Division. Doing what? We don't know, but he's still involved with the UFO world. Coming back and then doing interference syndrome. You can actually look at the paper there of the brain scans of people who have been impacted by Havana syndrome. Microwave weaponry, directed energy weaponry. That's what this is showing. It's showing brain damage that happens when people come into contact with the technologies that might be flying these, quote, UFOs around.
Right.
Not alien technology, human technology that they just didn't do full testing on. He's establishing the ICD-10 code so that they could do medical billing on veterans that have been damaged by this stuff.
Wow.
Establishing what the actual criteria for, this is an actual injury that comes from directed energy. and doing the brain scans on it. And
This is what Kit Green's doing.
Kit Green and Gary Nolan.
And Gary Nolan.
And Gary Nolan. He's side by side. Apparently this was like a joint thing that they did.
Wow. Yeah, so Gary was tied to this whole thing about the basal ganglia being dense with neurons, means you can see ghosts.
Caudate putamen.
Caudate putamen.
Yeah, they talk all about it in the paper.
Oh, okay.
And that goes back to earlier.
And this is
research.
hereditary?
It is, yeah, it's genetic, but it can atrophy under certain conditions, what they show in the paper. And the original doctor that found that supposedly was Dr. Shafika Karagula, who was, she was working with the MK Ultra group up at McGill University in Canada, and she's George Norrie's aunt.
Who's?
George Norrie from Coast to Coast AM.
Wow.
And his aunt, Shafika Karagula, Dr. Shafika Karagula, was a neuroscientist, and she apparently found that initial link between psychic ability and the caudate putamen being hyper-innervated. Yeah. And she did that with a woman named Viola Petit Neal. And if you'd like, we're going to republish their books.
Really?
There you go. Yeah.
What, how does the caudate putamen atrophy?
You can actually see in there if you switch it, it'll show you densities and sizes. It's like a blue.
Oh, here we go. What are the caudate and putamen?
Yeah, it talks about it, gives a rundown, and then it shows atrophied ones from being impacted by energy weapons, impacted by microwaves, the Frey effect, and yeah.
So it's like right in the center of the brain.
Yeah, it's our antenna. Some of us have better antennas than others, and some can, the transceiver aspects of the brain, the transmitter and receiver. That's
this is the stuff Diana Pasulka talks about.
It is, yeah. Limitedly, she doesn't exactly get into all of it.
Right, yeah. She's very mysterious about some of it.
Yeah, I believe she's part of that group.
Which group?
The group that's
doing the studies?
That presented these papers. Yeah, it's all one group with Tim Taylor and the guys from NSA, NRO. And actually here, you want to talk about like Chris Bledsoe and all those guys. Here's his NRO mission patch from the satellite launch.
This is hit. How'd you get this?
eBay. Crazy enough, there's a dude selling NRO mission patches on eBay, and as soon as the Bledsoes talked about it, I went.
So he just recreates them. That's cool.
No, I think that's an original.
You think it's an original?
That's what he billed it as. I don't know. It didn't have a certificate of authenticity or anything.
Right.
But there's indication that this technology.
So this is the lady that he sees.
Supposedly, yeah, and it's NROL 35 National Reconnaissance Office launched 35 out of Vandenberg. Was the trumpet system, and that's
the 7 trumpets of doomsday.
The 7 trumpets of the apocalypse. Yeah, supposedly, and it was the Jeroboam system. And one wonders if the energy weapons that they're measuring the effects from are linked in with this. The NRO. And
they were launching satellites. There were 7 satellites. Is that correct?
There's 7 in this trumpet system.
In that trumpet system,
and overall, the system's called Jeroboam. Jeroboam. And I'm probably gonna.
Oh, that's some Greek shit.
Biblical. Yeah, it's Jeroboam was the.
Can you search that, Steve? Jeroboam.
Jeroboam. Yeah, I'm gonna get a phone call for this. Like somebody's gonna be like, "You're fucked." Guy.
What year were those satellites launched?
Over the course of quite a few years. You can pull them up. Actually, you can look up the NROL launches on YouTube or on Wikipedia.
Oh, it's Hebrew.
Yep.
And Greek. Wait, what?
Yeah,
Romanized.
He was
cited Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, was according to the Hebrew Bible the first king of northern kingdom of Israel.
He supposedly took the kingdom away from Solomon and Solomon's sons and led them into idol worship, worshiping cows.
Oh,
so the golden calves and the idol worship that the Israelites fell for, or fell away from the grace of God or whatever. I'm not into that.
Yeah.
That was Jeroboam's doing, and you got Bledsoe up here talking about like the lady and Hathor and the cow, and you're like, okay, and he's showing them the Jeroboam satellite patch, and I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
You think it's all? What do you think's going on there? What do you think? Do you think he actually believes the stories?
Oh, Bledsoe?
Yeah,
I think he does.
What I mean, like, I don't know what to make of the crazy stories about like the lady. You can't verify any of that stuff. But with Bledsoe, the one thing you can't discredit is those orbs that follow him everywhere.
Yeah, have you seen the videos where we summon them using Mind to Mind?
No.
Yeah, we had 30 of them at once. I put it
really?
Yeah, it's on Instagram. Check it out. Everybody go follow our Instagram and check out
Hell
these videos.
Yeah, let's pull that up, Steve.
Anybody can do this. You're not special.
Credit cards, car loans, and even medical bills. And then you're juggling payments and all of a sudden feeling stuck. But here's the good news, you're not stuck. You just need a reset. At American Financing, they help homeowners like you every day. They use your home's equity and roll that high interest debt into one simple, affordable payment. They're saving homeowners an average of $800 a month. No judgment, no pressure, just real solutions that put you back in control. Imagine breathing again, sleeping again, knowing your future is yours to shape. It starts with one call. It only takes 10 minutes to get started, and there are no upfront fees. So it costs nothing to find out how much you can save. And if you start today, you may be able to delay up to 2 mortgage payments during the process, creating an extra bonus in savings up front. Their mortgage consultants are salary-based, so there's no incentive to put you in a loan that won't work for you. And they're ready to help. Take back your peace of mind with American Financing today. Call American Financing at 888-995-2440. That's 888-995-2440 or americanfinancing.net/Jones. NMLS 182334, www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org. Thank you, American Financing, for sponsoring this episode. It's linked below. Now back to the show.
Like this is something anybody can do if they
Anybody can summon these orbs.
Anybody can do this.
What?
So, like, check it out.
Oh my God.
We had
I
a
have to
group
see
go out.
this.
We had 5 people linked together with these, and they were focusing on, make lights in the sky up here, and we had that. There it is.
Steve. You did it.
I got a blue check.
Yay.
There you go.
All right. How do we
Scroll
find these
okay,
orbs?
go to Reels. Scroll on down. We got orbs, and scroll up a little bit.
Up.
Mystery lights, not as big a deal as you think.
Mystery lights, not a big a deal as you think. Bottom right, Steve. Down. There you go.
There are many people out there posting videos of things they see in the sky that are misidentified satellites, planes, and other normal things. But this is what it looks like when something truly anomalous is going on. If you watched my previous video, you know that a few years ago we did an event here in Tennessee where we had friends out to an astronomy site. And over the course of the event, we had well over 30 mysterious lights. Call them UFOs, call them orbs, call them whatever you wish. And they showed up over the course of a guided meditation where we were using our mind-to-mind technology. And here it is. This is what it actually looked like. Cluster of lights just over the hills, low on the horizon, but they would twinkle and they'd move on. And as I said, there were between 30 and 40 of them. We were using our mind-to-mind technology, and this started about 6 minutes in, which would equate to the introductory period that the mind-to-mind actually runs for before it gets into the working program. So these things showed up around that time. They persisted for about a half an hour, and then they twinkled out and went away as people stopped doing the meditation. So it was happening while they were focused on making this happen. Very obviously, these are not planes or satellites, and we are thousands of miles away from any Asian country where they be sending up Chinese lanterns. I'm not going to sit here and try to oversell you on anything or try to weave in some belief system or tell you that a goddess came down and gave me a message about the fate of mankind, because we all know you're fucked anyway. Instead, I'm just going to give it to you plain. This is what it was. This is what it looked like. Anomalous things can and do happen, especially if you're using the correct techniques.
So have you ever got, he gets them to come really close, and they're always right in his backyard.
Sure, but
What do you think that is?
does he have videos of that?
They're all over his Instagram every day.
Of it close up?
Oh, yeah.
Anything tangible, though? Anything besides a light? Because you had Robert Duncan come on your show and show you that you could do femto lasers and create holograms of hover. And he's involved with John Alexander, who developed that technology.
Who is?
Bledsoe.
Oh,
He's best buddies. He's wearing a CIA hat in a picture with John Alexander.
Hang on, go to Bledsoe's. I want to show you just what Bledsoe posts every day.
Now I need to temper this. I've spoken with Bledsoe's son, Chris Jr., and he seems to be confused by the whole thing. They seem like nice people. I don't have anything personal.
They are very nice people. Yeah, I had Chris and his daughter on here.
Yeah.
And whatever's going on, it's real. Whatever these orbs are, just click on the latest one.
Well, is it real or is it aliens? Is it a thing that?
Well, it's something.
It's something.
It's something. When I say real, I don't mean it's fucking angels, but it's something is there. It's not. He's not doing special effects.
Once again, well, you don't know that. You don't know if the guys around him, Tim Taylor and the NRO and SA and John Alexander are doing it.
Like, do you think they're fucking really sitting in his backyard every night doing that? Like,
yeah, because he's a hell of a good mouthpiece. He is disarming. He's a country boy that people generally like, and he was a very good mouthpiece for their agenda and their message. So I think from that standpoint, it's a possibility. And that's all I'm saying. It's a possibility. I like leaving room for things that could be real. It's
definitely a possibility. It's definitely I think it's more possible that is true than them being things from the Bible.
I know for a fact that they had tested these.
That one's pretty wild.
It is pretty wild, but it might be a femto laser. It might be like they did testing on Rendlesham Air Force Base. You heard about the Rendlesham story?
Yes.
Back in the 70s, I think it was, back in England.
Yeah.
They tested non-lethals to see what the security the security response would be to using non-lethals and psychotronics that they didn't realize existed. They were using these in three-dimensional space, using drugs that were put out with a mist that they had to put them in a suggestible state to see these things, to see if they would freak the fuck out at a nuclear site using the non-lethal weapons. These have been in use for 30 years. And there's a video out from the military themselves talking about using these. You can pulse the air around them, and you can put out a voice from them. They can talk to you in midair. And they were using them for security around bases. I'm not kidding. Check out the military's laser that can talk to you. And they show up.
Oh my God.
And who knows how advanced they are.
Because
this goes back to World War II. I'll tell you, everybody, this is a world exclusive for the Danny Jones podcast. Back in World War II, there was something called the Battle of the Beams. The Germans figured out that you didn't have to bomb a factory with sight. You can focus 2 radar beams over the Rolls-Royce factory, for example. And they could have a sounder where the bombers would fly and they'd listen to the sound. And once they got over sight, it would ping and they'd drop their bombs. They could do it sightless. They could do it in mist, and they could bomb these factories. And the British didn't know how they were doing it. You could Google this. It's a Wikipedia, the Battle of the Beams. What the Germans also found out that this sighting system, that when you converge them, it would excite the air, it would create a light, and that light would interfere with the electronics on an airplane. So fighter planes, bombers, whatever. Those were the Foo Fighters. The Germans were doing this at the end of the war, throwing whatever they could at the wall by converging these things in the sky to interfere with the electronics of the bombers that were coming over into Germany.
Wow.
And then the British came out with their flying saucer research group in 1950. Sir Henry Tizard got ahead of this by creating a flying saucer group, the first one in the world, through British intelligence to cover this up, because this was a viable technology. And it goes back to the 1940s. There you go. Yeah. They had little ones that you could put into the field and you could make Foo Fighters with. It wasn't a physical drone that would go up. They were converging, just like Robert Duncan told you. They were converging. It wasn't lasers; it was radar. They could converge and create ionize the air and create a Foo Fighter.
Like it's what did he call it? He called it the blue beam, the Project Blue Beam, where they can.
Yeah, I don't think it's not even blue beam. Like no? I think that's a myth that was pushed out to cover this shit up. The real stuff. So
really?
If you start looking in the Project Blue Beam, you find out there's not a lot of depth there.
Really,
but this stuff absolutely existed, and it's been around since World War II.
Okay. I need you to search for what he said previously to this. He said, what did you call it? Military orbs that talk to you or something?
Yeah, look up. It should come up with that. I did a video on it. I couldn't point you. It was like 2 years ago. Okay. Military lasers that talk.
That talk. Oh my God. We just figured out the title of this podcast.
There it is. Military Times.
Oh, okay. The Military Times.
But there's stuff that goes back a lot longer than this.
Okay. Beams, a flashing light and shouting over a loudspeaker to keep people away from sensitive areas. A new technology is being developed that could allow troops to fire a laser that can form a plasma ball that talks to potential intruders.
Yeah, there's a video of it working.
Right there?
Is that this? That's the one.
Oh my God.
Oh, awesome.
Sorry, I know I'm all over the place with this, but there's a lot to cover here. This is cool.
Pentagon scientists have finished testing on an early weapon that can make laser plasma balls talk.
Stop, or we will be forced to fire upon you.
It's called the laser-induced plasma effect, and it's made by the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate. So what they've done is basically created a laser that can shoot out to a certain distance, and they can pipe in sound waves through it, and actually make human voice sounds and commands.
Stop, or we will be forced to fire upon you.
Now where this becomes useful is around an area where you want to keep a perimeter secure. So essentially you can shoot out this laser, you can then talk to the people on the edge of the perimeter rather than sending troops out there and tell them to get away or you're going to shoot, or get away or they're going to use other means to deter them. And that same laser can be used to actually target the individual and create heat through pinpricks, like microscopic pinpricks in their skin, even beneath clothing. It's extremely uncomfortable and people move out of the way almost immediately. At the same time, the exact same laser is also being used as kind of a never-ending flashbang grenade. It can basically, with a power source, it can constantly create audible effects to deter and confuse and disorient people, just like a flashbang grenade that you would have in your kit, but would only be able to flash once, maybe twice, depending on the design. Now, it's still a few years away. They just finished testing to get the audio portion through the laser in a laboratory setting this year, but they expect to have a fieldable version within the next 5 years that troops could use to protect different areas or put on mobile platforms to disperse crowds or use it in a non-lethal way in theater.
Yeah, horse shit. They've had that for decades. It's very old technology.
Wow.
But it's cool, isn't it?
That's insane. When was this published? 5 years ago.
5 years ago, yeah. And the guy that was in charge of the non-lethal programs just happened to write the introduction to Chris Bledsoe's book, Colonel John Alexander. Right. So he was...
That's another crazy thing about him. That is like one of the craziest things about how all the CIA NRO people are just... And he even mentions in his book this elusive NASA guy.
Tim Taylor. Yeah.
No, not him. The other guy.
The bigger guy?
The moon guy. The guy who mapped the moon for the Apollo missions.
Yeah, the one that was his family friend for...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was his name again, Steve?
Hal Povenmire.
Povenmire. Steve will never forget that name.
I don't know anything about
Yeah, you can't find anything about him. But this guy allegedly drove up there from NASA and told him that he was the one in charge of mapping the moon so they knew where to land the lunar landers for the Apollo missions.
Terrible father. If a Fed shows up to your front door and you got kids and letting them in the house, what the are you thinking? I would never let any of these people around a family that I would.
Yeah, but if you don't know anything about this stuff, like, you're not paying attention to this stuff. He's just some happy-go-lucky.
I would, John Alexander wouldn't get anywhere near my family. So no thank you.
Why not?
He's got them crazy eyes. He does. Yeah, I know he's out there watching. Hey, John. He's Dr. Death, really? I don't know. You got Chris Bledsoe here telling you about I can never hurt a fly. I can never whatever. The lady let me see this, and everything's connected. And then he's like lubing up John Alexander because they call him Dr. Death, and he was a hitman. Talk about being, schizo. Just my opinion.
Yeah, it's fishy, man. It's a lot of weird shit.
It is
a lot of weird shit in this thing,
and
this whole topic.
When
this
you
whole
realize
topic is so
how long ago this started. There's aspects of this you don't even realize about how long the NRO and NSA have been involved with creating fake abductees and contactees. It goes back to Jacques Vallée talks about a woman named Valerie Ransone, who was the Tim Taylor before Tim Taylor. Valerie Ransone, she's out in Hawaii right now. I have a picture of her actually in that dossier in the printouts that I've got for you there. You can get Valerie. And Valerie was going around with the doctor, there she is. She was going around with Dr. Andrea Puharish, hypnotizing kids and making them think that they were alien abductees. She was part of that group, the Space Kids. Yeah, and it was an MK project. Puharish was an MK contract. We've got his book here. Actually, I brought these for you.
I read all about Puharish in Annie Jacobson's book.
There you go. There's his book about what's actually going on. He had to come in the Jesus moment and spilled the beans, and the FBI tried to keep him from publishing that, so we republished it.
No way.
That's for you and Steve.
Holy shit, bro. Thank you.
That's about his research into Tesla technology that, again...
Oh, look, it's all in typewriter.
Yeah, it's the draft. We got it from the woman that lived with him when he died. We got it from her estate.
Wow. So Puharish was also working with Uri Geller, right?
He was. He was an Army doctor, went to school on the Army's dime, went out immediately and was working for the Army, Navy, and CIA, but also British intelligence. Aldous Huxley was handling him. Sir John Whitmore was handling him. All this comes down from British intelligence, including MK Ultra. Ultimately, it starts with the British.
MK Ultra started with the British? I thought it started with the Russians.
Henry Tizard started it up with a meeting with CIA brass in Montreal. Well, yeah, it started with British intelligence after all this World War II shit that I was talking about. So they started all of this up, that ball rolling. But Puharish was their contractor that would go across the different groups, the different agencies, and there's a video, Steve. This is a great one if you want to see MK Ultra technology in action. It's one step beyond the sacred mushroom. where
One
Puharish,
step beyond the sacred mushroom.
one step beyond is the show name, and it's the sacred mushroom. It's on YouTube, and it's Puharish is there flashing lights in people's eyes, hypnotizing them to make them psychic. There's a portion, there it is.
Science has not yet given it a
Right there. Keep going.
Sort of. You don't. It's kind of hard to.
That's the early photic and magnetic stimulator that that MK Ultra was using. Puharish developed
Oh, really?
to put people in their states. Yeah, it's an American version of the Lita machine from Russia.
Lower your head a little bit. A little more. Now.
Sounds awful.
It does. Sounds diabolical.
Right, yes. Now I see it. I see so many things I can't tell you. Can't you slow it?
Slow it.
Now I see but I see so many colors that are. Go.
Are they pretty?
In geometric signs, now there's like great things. They're magnificent, is what they are. They're magnificent. I have never been so aware of color.
What is this thing actually doing?
It makes me
After this, he goes off and does psychic testing on him and finds that he became much more accurate choosing cards. So it's opening up psychic ability. That was the intent, at least.
All right.
But it's putting him in a hypnotic
Your
state.
left hand and try to find the one in this row.
And this is his testing. He's doing a dermo-optical vision, seeing through the fingers, which is, they actually studied this. It's in the congressional record.
Really?
Yeah. I'll tell you about that in a second. Now, when they did the church committee, they asked if they had any open projects still being done.
Turn the volume down on the video, Steve. It's pretty unsettling.
Yeah, they asked if they had any ongoing projects going for MK Ultra, and they're like, we only have one, and it's a doctor who's testing a kid who can see through his hands in Orlando, and that was Puharish. So at that time, and then that started the ball rolling with a lot of things.
Jesus.
But this was all going on behind the scenes as a portion of the Army and Navy and CIA's projects into mind control. There is always a psychic component to it on the side. I did a video about Dr. George Estabrooks and the FBI trying to shill his services to the FBI and going back and forth with J. Edgar Hoover about using Manchurian candidates in the 1930s with documents. So I proved this all out.
Really?
There's a paper trail for this. Yeah, as early as the 30s.
Do you think they're still doing this stuff today?
Oh shit, yes. They're just
Really?
more sophisticated about it.
What do you think it looks like today? What do you think? What kind of stuff what kind of tools do you think they're using today?
TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah.
I don't even think
you're
you.
right.
I think an AI. I think you've asked. I think I saw one of your podcasts where you asked if an AI could hypnotize somebody or an AI could mind control somebody.
Right.
Absolutely. It's just a pattern of communication. Replicate that with an AI and figure out what the person's individual levers are to pull. And absolutely, we wouldn't even need a person to do it anymore.
Have you ever heard of something called the Brain Health Initiative?
Oh, what's that with?
Allegedly, this is like the new MK Ultra that's based in, I think it's Mexico or somewhere in South America, and it was put together by Obama. If you search Obama Brain Health Initiative.
I'm not familiar with it.
And essentially, it has something to do with how all of the tech devices that we have, from our TVs to our phones to our computer screens, have this specific frequency of blue light. And it's not, what it does is it like hijacks our circadian rhythm and our dopamine system.
Sure, yeah.
And basically turns us into like dopamine slot machines.
Yeah, we went to Target last night. You got the blue lights around here in the parking lots. Same
Yeah.
thing. Blue light carries more.
They're everywhere, yeah.
More information than any other spectrum of light, and that's part of it. It could be part of it if you flip the switch on it.
And I also believe it was during the Obama years when they banned full spectrum light bulbs. I think it's incandescent light bulbs. They banned them because they're not efficient enough.
That sounds about right, but that's, yeah. Yeah. That's, there was a lot of work that went on. We were republishing some of the works that we translated from Jacobo Grimberg. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's kind of an internet meme as well. He's the Mexican Puharish, basically.
Oh, really?
MK Ultra guy himself. And
How do you say his name?
Grinberg. It's Grimberg Zilberbaum, but it's Jacobo, Jacobo, Grinberg.
Jacobo. Okay.
Jacobo Grimberg. Yeah, we'd pronounce it that way. And he's the he did a ton of research into this. He did the Persinger experiments connecting minds between Mexico City and India in the 70s. So Persinger was recreating research when he was doing the correlation between two minds. So that's old research from the 70s that Grimberg was doing first. Grimberg was Israeli dual citizen, questionable if he was Mossad, came up, ended up going, escaping to the United States and disappearing. And but yeah, he's got some interesting stuff. He was at conferences with Puharish and John Keel and Jacques Vallée in Costa Rica for some of his work. So he was involved with all the groups as well. And they were doing star kid research. So the Valerie Ransone that I showed you, who was working with Puharish, hypnotizing kids to make them think that they were star kids, that they were contactees, whatever you want to consider that. He was doing that himself in Mexico City, running the same kind of experimentation on kids.
Have you ever heard of, I'm sure you have, you've heard Whitley Strieber's story.
Yeah. And he was, you know where he grew up? He grew up in San Antonio.
In Texas, right?
He's got stories about how he was being taken to one of the Air Force bases in San Antonio between 1940, late 40s, early 50s, that era. But the era he says overlaps with when Jolyon West was the head of psychiatry at that same base.
Yeah.
So
he also talks about he was sent to Mexico to some secret place that he hates to talk about, but he did talk about it on one radio show back in the day, where he says that him and a bunch of other children were shown footage of dead people or people being murdered and told that they were responsible for the murders to induce some sort of trauma.
Yeah, that's part of creating an altar, splitting them off into somebody that you create a partition so that you don't remember the bad things if you're a little kid. And that bad stuff is still in the subconscious, and that could be used to create. That's what Esther Brooks was doing with the FBI. He was doing it at civilian conservation corps camps during the Great Depression. He was driving around hypnotizing people and creating altars that he could hypnotically induce and come out and they could remember information. Just the Manchurian Candidate story. But he was doing it 20 years before they were talking about it.
So how does that work? I'm not smart enough to understand how you can induce like some serious psychological trauma in a kid, and you're saying that they create a split personality, one that they suppress. Yeah,
kids got to go off with its life and have a healthy, happy life and try to be, somewhat functional. And if you give them enough trauma up front, like they got to partition that somewhere.
Yes.
And that partition part becomes a different person. For all intents and purposes, it's a different consciousness that can be programmed as a different, fully functioning person that could go out and interact with the world, gather information, come back. And the pisser about it is that one doesn't know the other one exists, and it doesn't remember what happened to the other one.
And how do you? So I'm assuming that the goal behind creating this separate person is to get them to work for them, to do like secret shit for.
You'd think so. That was the offer to, and it wasn't just an offer. They took him up on it. To J. Edgar Hoover, that I'm going to hypnotize 3 people, create an altar within them, send them off to FBI headquarters because they want to work for the FBI. Their normal personality will work for the FBI, and their altars can go off and infiltrate organized crime or be double agents that we can then mine afterwards and get information about those crime rings.
And how do they manage which person they are and what time they turn into what person?
Just a hypnotic induction. It is as simple as leading somebody through. Hypnosis at its core is organized fantasy. You're having somebody come along into a land of make-believe with you by talking them through it. And that can be extremely powerful. We think it's not something that could partition people off memory-wise and all that, but absolutely can. And it was figured out. They figured it out in the 1700s. There's Marquis de Persinger figured it out in the 1784. He published a book about how to hypnotize somebody and have them remember things in their somnambulistic state and not their waking state. And they've been doing it ever since. Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
200 years. The British.
So it's almost like that Severance show in real life.
I never watched that. Is that what it's about?
It's about basically these people that there's this huge company called Lumen where all the employees agree to have a brain chip installed in their brain to where they go to work, right, as their normal self. They get in the elevator. As soon as the elevator goes up to the severed floor, it flips a switch. It goes to another partition to where basically, essentially, when they leave work every day, they get in the elevator, they go down, and then their next memory is right back in the elevator going to work again. Yeah. And then their home life is completely separated from their work life.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Only that is real. That literally exists. They were using it, James,
but without a brain chip, with some sort of hypnosis stuff.
Talking to people, just hypnosis. Right. So what it was back in the 1700s, you had Mesmer, Franz Anton Mesmer, and he was doing mesmerism. And we think that that's silly and hokey and old timey. In the 1840s, they changed the name from mesmerism into hypnotism, Dr. James Braid, and he was using it to do surgery and amputations on people where they wouldn't remember their leg getting amputated in a war or something because they didn't have the medical facilities where he was deployed out. I think he was in the Southeast Asia for the British. He could hypnotize a person, do the surgery, bring them back, and they wouldn't remember the hard part, the bad part where they had their leg cut off, and it worked. And it continued on literally from the 1840s as part of medical hypnotism until the 1920s and 30s. But there was always another layer on that when people were in their somnambulistic state, they had psychic ability. You could take a person, sit them in a chair in one room, take a person to another room, another town, another city. They were doing it in France to other cities. Change the time on your pocket watch, and they'd know what time you were changing it to. It was a form of remote viewing. And this was going on for 150 years before we even knew any of that. And Estabrooks refined the technique. He used it in World War II for the Marines. He has a book where he created altars for the Marines in World War II. Actually, it was a magazine article where he admitted to that. He has a book that's a fictionalized version of that, and there's a document trail where he's doing it for the FBI in the 30s. Wow. So at least until then, it was being covered up by the Society for Psychical Research in Great Britain, where they were studying these things as well. And they were trying to figure out what the true potential of a hypnotized person actually was. It wasn't all spiritualism and table tipping and all that shit. That's a cover story for what they were actually able to accomplish. There's a ton of research in the old books about shit that we are just getting to right now, like Stanford research, remote viewing, and psychokinesis, stopping hearts. Different
Stopping
things.
hearts.
Stopping hearts. One of the lines of research in Israel was they found out you can influence muscle tissue by focusing on it. You can cause it to contract, and they thought that they could turn that into a weapon to cause a heart attack.
Jesus
Christ. It's crazy how much it's right there under the surface. If people would only research a little bit deeper, it's all right there. It hasn't been hidden except by neglect. People just don't look that far down.
It's so crazy, man. Because it doesn't even have, it's like the crazy thing about it is it doesn't even have to be hidden. No. Like it could just be out in plain sight and people could run with it and people still wouldn't know what to believe.
Full circle with our comments earlier in the podcast. That, they don't even know what is real.
As long as there's like 20% fake stuff out there, the rest of it can be real and no one will never know what to pick.
Yeah, you hide it behind a curtain of the giggle factor.
Yeah. Jeez, man, that's crazy. I got to take a leak real quick.
Go for it.
Cool. We'll be right back.
I probably need to as well.
So I wanted to ask you about those goggles that you created. What are those, and what's the history of those things?
Okay, so the history is back a bit ago. The Museum of Tarot wasn't a thing online. It was my personal collection, and I was selling overflow from the collection on eBay and all that.
Yeah.
And I like to collect weird things: radionics machines, psychotronic devices, basically things that interweave with what we've been talking about in this podcast. One of the things that I came across on the internet was this mysterious Dicyanin and these mysterious goggles that could allow you to see demons and entities and all this.
Oh, shit.
And I wondered how much they were overselling this.
Right.
So I went to try to find some. Couldn't find it to save me. Nobody was making real ones anymore. They stopped making them in the 80s. Strangely enough, the guy that was making them last was a naval intelligence outfit, Mankind Research Unlimited. We can get into that. But it wasn't available anywhere. You can find it. So I had to go get antique pairs and try to back engineer it and then acquire the chemical and get into manufacturing for that as well to see if these things were even real. I did that. I made some initial pairs for myself and had a couple left over. And I put them up on eBay and Etsy, and I sold out immediately. And one of the people that I happened to sell them to had 1 million followers on TikTok. Thank you. Shout out to Dr. Parkenstein. He's fantastic. And he talked about these, and we got blown up and said, there must be people want these. So let's sell some more. Check them out.
So what's the story behind these?
The story is back about 120 years ago. Dr. Walter Kilner in Great Britain, medical doctor. He was a medical imaging specialist. So what we would call a radiologist today.
Right.
And he started using various forms of coal tar dye derivatives, new dyes that had been on the market, to see if you could see things around the human body, energy and such, to do medical diagnosis. He found that this Dicyanin was one of the chemicals that allowed him to see things that were actually going on. If somebody had cancer around the pancreas, it'd have a dark area around the pancreas, things like that. And he put them out into the public for the medical community to use. They loved them. They thought they were great. And then the Theosophists and the New Agey and spiritual people jumped on it and started saying, oh, this is the human aura. This finally proves the aura. And it took on a life of its own in those circles. And continued on, like I said, until I think it was the early 1990s when they stopped making these. But for the longest time, they had pairs of these out there and available through Great Britain.
It makes everything very dark and purple.
Yeah, and if you go outside, it acclimates your eyes to a different spectrum, and you'll start to see a halo, two halos actually, one around your fingers a little farther out and a darker one closer up, and you'll start to get the effects. You could, yeah, there's actually a good one. If you see the one with my fingers together, a little closer. Keep going back. Let's see. You might have to go to the regular, go to the regular Dicyanin aura goggles, not the research kit. And I have a picture of the cobwebbing between my fingers showing them. So yeah, just the one in the lower right there.
Bottom right.
Yep. And yeah, the first, second. Oh no, do I not have that on there? Go back.
So what's the story? How is it? Is it a real? What is?
It's a real thing. Yeah.
How do you explain that lighter color around?
There's a full page for Dicyanin that actually gets into it. If you go up to our toolbar, there should be a full page for it. So there it is. Yeah, you see the cobwebbing between my fingers.
Okay. Is there a conventional explanation for this?
Yeah, but in the West they don't like talking about this. in Russia they have a full theory of bioplasma and bioenergy. That is well established and well understood within the psi circles, certainly. Psychic research and not psychic research. Psychic research in Russia is integrated with normal science. They see it as a life science. They don't see it as
really.
Yeah, it's
even today.
Even today, that's what kicked us off trying to catch up with them. We actually had been ahead of them. The Russians seized upon the old research from the early 1900s and went beyond us, and then we had to catch up in the 70s supposedly, and because they treated it like a real science. They had the best minds at it. We've got a book out by Dr. Vasiliev in Russia, Leonid Vasiliev, talking about their strides up to 1960 of what they actually figured out about all this stuff. And it was always integrated, and they didn't partition one off and say that's silly, that's ridiculous, and they were able to get farther ahead with it. So, and this is part of it. Bioplasma and bioenergy is.
And so what is the deal? What's going on with that chemical that's inside the glass there?
Well, it's coated on these ones. The old ones had a gelatin layer that was impregnated with dicyanin or pianocyanol between two glass pieces, and it would degrade. You couldn't see. It would last a couple of months and it would start to get cloudy. You couldn't see it through it.
Okay.
So we had to come up with a lens technology, like a telescope lens that was coated with it so it wouldn't degrade anymore. So that's one of the things that we established that nobody else has got out there.
Wow.
What it does is it just shifts the light to that correct spectrum. There's no real magic in it. Unfortunately, like people like to say that like they live. You're able to see the aliens. You're able to see the obey on the sign above you. That oversells it. But there are things. People will have different energy around them. They will have dark areas around them when they have a health issue and malady. It absolutely does happen. And you can see it if the lighting conditions are correct.
So you use these when you go to like ancient sites and you look at them and you can see. So some things have more of this light purple aura than other things.
And traditionally, those have been the areas that people would congregate to do ritual work or sacred work. And we also found that a lot of these areas correlate with like having lower magnetic fields for the area. So we'll find areas like Mithraeums, where the local magnetic field for that area in Italy or wherever it might be is usually 40. And we go to those areas, we go to the underground site, and it's zero. It goes to zero, and it kind of inverts. Some of the cathedrals do this. It's a magnetic anomaly that is in these sites or created by the structures of these sites. And this corresponds with other research we have for Kozarev mirrors and such, where we find that people have better psychic ability, better clairvoyance, telepathy, things we can actually test when they're in these sites and the magnetic field is less. And it goes along with Persinger's research as well, because everything was magnetic based within the brain.
No shit.
Yeah. And it's
crazy.
It's like an integrated theory where we wanted to make a visual way you could go to these sites and see it, but we can also test it with a magnetometer and infrasound, and we can see what's actually there with the quote sacred energy about these sites where, we're not just there, dowsing.
Can I take him outside real quick?
Absolutely.
I'm just going to go out that door real quick and take a look.
Yeah. Yeah, give your eyes a second. Yeah, as your eyes acclimate to it, it'll become. We recommend people put these on for 15 minutes, let their eyes adjust, and then go out and do that, and then you can see it. Yeah, and that's how Kilner was doing it as well.
That's wild. So how did you get that photo? Did you just put your like camera up to the lens?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what nanometer range it lets through?
Yeah, I could pull that up for you. I did a spectrogram on this when I was initially doing it. So, but it's in the violet range. So, and it's people talk about like blue and red. Blue and red don't exist. There is no red dicyanin. There was no blue dicyanin. It was like a magenta, purpley red color. And you see this spread around the social media a lot because people take something that's wrong and run with it. There were no red night vision goggles in Vietnam that allowed people to see things. That's an urban legend. Or else I would have bought one already, replicated it.
They had a lot of crazy shit during Vietnam.
They did have a lot of crazy shit.
A lot of really like high tech stuff. A lot of it didn't work, but a lot of it did. That's when DARPA was like on fire during Vietnam.
Yeah, it was still ARPA, wasn't it?
I think
the
so.
D was on it.
Yeah, they had that all that stuff they were doing on the Ho Chi Minh Trail and those nerve agents, or was it? No, that was Agent Orange, wasn't it?
Now, you were talking about bioenergy, and if that's been established. They found there was a Marine Corps contract back then for dowsing, that they could find the Viet Cong tunnels using dowsing, and it was an actual thing through the same company, through that Mankind Research that did these, and then
with like dowsing rods.
They had special dowsing rods for the Marines that they could condense up and fold up and put in their pocket, and it was through this same company that had these last, that did real ones, the last Mankind Research, and Carl Schleicher.
Dude, I'm reading this book right now that's blowing my mind. It's called, I forget the name of it, but it's by that one lady we talked to, Steve, that Travis recommended. It's called something Scorpion Bombs and like Ancient Weapons. And it talks about like the ancient Greeks and the Romans and the different biological and chemical weapons they were using for war. One of the things that they would do was like elephants were used for war. So they would light pigs on fire and send them at the elephants in hopes to like make the elephant go crazy and trample all over all their people.
Interesting.
And it often went really wrong because they didn't
you think?
Greek fire, poison arrows, and scorpion bombs, but there's a newer version of it. This is the old version.
That's funny.
And by Madrine Mayer. She one of the things they didn't account for when they lit their pigs on fire is they couldn't control where the pigs ran after they were lit on fire. And they often ran back into their own army and like fucked up a lot of people.
Why would a pig that's lit on fire run where you want it to? That's
exactly right.
A little short-sighted.
Okay, we're gonna light you on fire, you're gonna run that way.
There's theories going around, even the Black Plague was a form of biological warfare between kingdoms where they were poisoning wells. There's indication that people were poisoning wells.
There were lots of water supplies that were poisoned in Egypt and all over that area. And it's fascinating stuff. Like what we were able to do back then. Like we've been using chemical biological warfare forever.
Yeah, we've always been wacky. That's a bit much.
And then they also had they would fill bags full of scorpions, like some of the most deadly scorpions, and like throw them over walls at people, and it would just like take out tons of people. They were some of the earliest the Mithraic people were dipping their arrows in viper venoms.
Wow.
And using that to kill people. It was crazy.
Who was the poor son of a bitch that pulled scorpion duty? That's like
right. How do you get all those fucking scorpions in a bag? I'm sure a lot of people died just doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. God forbid the wind's coming at you and you kind of toss it. Yikes.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. And then like also a lot of the things that I've been learning about recently is how much stuff we got from the Nazis and how we like took that and like expanded on it.
Yeah, we could get into
with Warner von Braun and some of those paperclip scientists. And I think even Whitley Strieber, I think a lot of the paperclip scientists were working on him when he was in Texas.
So a lot of that is a myth. MK Ultra was not German. It wasn't paperclip scientists. MK Ultra specifically, I'm talking about the mind control within the CIA. It wasn't Germans. We had Kraft, we had Horton Flying Wings. I don't know if you saw my video about the Roswell
Horton brothers.
Yeah, did you see my Roswell video?
No.
It's about 2 years old now, but it's about Roswell being a Horton Flying Wing that crashed. And they had a...
I believe that. I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah, there was a Northrop training landing strip that was the longest one in the world nobody knew about until I talked about it in the video. That was where they were testing these, and it was pointed right at Roswell. So who knows? But it's a better story than aliens getting hit by a windmill.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they would want to be getting intelligence on our nuclear sites and on sites like Area 51, right? The Soviets.
I think there was a lot of interaction at that time where Soviets. I think the Cold War was a hoax. I think.
What do you mean the Cold War was a hoax?
The Cold War was a hoax. There is my powerful stance here.
I had a guy on here once that told me the military-industrial complex is a hoax.
It certainly keeps society moving in a certain direction.
Yeah.
What it looked like to me is that we were allies, and then one day we weren't. And even though you look at psi research and you look at psychotronic research, and all the Soviet scientists were allowed to go back and forth between the West and talk with them all the time and share research. This was happening at the highest levels of their secret sciences. They were still allowed to talk back and forth. So how partitioned off was it? What it looks like to me is that you run a scam on society. You tell one side, the one side of the Coliseum, that those people are the enemy. You tell this side that those people are the enemy, and then you get the best out of them to create the best technology like NASA and put shit in orbit that can control both sides.
Really?
That's what it looks like to me. Just a long-term development kick in the ass for society to create things that they normally wouldn't create, like non-lethal weapons that could be used to control the entire herd and not just one side or the other.
So walk me through what you believe Roswell was all about.
Roswell, I believe it was a Horton flying wing. I know that.
What was who was behind it? Why did they do it?
Yeah, you don't want people. Well, it became the stealth bomber. Decades later, the Horton flying wings became like all the B-2 and the F-117 and all that. You wouldn't want people to know about that, so you put a hokey story behind it. UFOs from the Henry Tizard days in Great Britain, where we had the Battle of the Beams, that were the Foo Fighters, that were actually beam weapons. Like they had the earliest beam weapons. They had to cover that somehow. So you create this hokey story about aliens and Foo Fighters, and you see all these little green men cartoons coming out around that time.
Yeah.
And Bugs Bunny and all that. And then if you had physical craft that nobody knew about, like Avro Canada, who was recreating some of the flying pancake-shaped disc craft. And if you had these different groups that were working on technology that you took after the war, you wouldn't want anybody to know about that. Like Kenneth Arnold, I have the first issue of Fate magazine where Kenneth Arnold brings out his story about the flying discs, the flying saucers.
Yeah.
And they weren't saucers. They were Horton flying wings. If you look at the pictures of them.
I think Giorgiani was telling us about this.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's very obvious that we were flying these things around and had to put down some kind of wall around it. And I think it just served a purpose, and they kept it going for decades.
Yeah.
So, people don't ask. You're going to get laughed out of a room if you bring up aliens. I mean, certainly a decade or two ago. Nowadays, people can talk about that.
Have you heard Annie Jacobson's theory on it?
Oh, what is it?
In her book Area 51, she interviewed a top-level EG&G engineer. And when she was interviewing him, he was really, really old. This was like, she interviewed him, I think maybe 10 years before he died. And he basically said he was working for EG&G, and he confessed to her that the Roswell incident was a Soviet-controlled drone, remote-controlled fake flying saucer with surgically manipulated children to look like aliens by Mengele, and they crashed him here to basically some sort of like chaos, some sort of like World of Worlds type thing in the U.S. And she asked him, like, okay, well, if the Soviet Union surgically altered children and crashed them in New Mexico, why wouldn't we just say they did that? Because that would make them look terrible.
Yeah.
Right? Why would we keep that a secret? And this EG&G engineer responded to her and said, because we started doing the same exact thing.
Honestly, I think that's a bullshit story, and they always have an explanation for things. Thanks for telling me, but yeah, that just doesn't ring true based on what I know about the rest of how it all kind of fits together.
Yeah,
I mean, you bring up like EG&G, like they still have a vested interest in keeping the truth. Department of Energy, EG&G, and Area 51. Well, you want to go back to Mirage Men and Benowitz. What did Benowitz actually see over Kirtland Air Force Base? He was seeing balls of light and stuff moving that were faster, and they go into mountainsides and all this stuff, right? So they brought out Doty, and Doty dotied him, and Benowitz went crazy.
Right.
Well, what did he see? Well, there was a laser facility testing, these balls of light, these lasers, right on the mountain on, I think it's called Coyote Pass or Coyote Mountain. Yeah. It's a Department of Energy laser facility there that nobody knew about. And they still want to keep that shit secret. They still haven't let these out of the bag. You're just now hearing about the talking balls of light. And I know for a fact they were using that shit as early as Rendlesham.
And the NSA literally parked right across the street from his house, and they were like beaming stuff into his house, telling him that they were aliens from another planet. They're coming here because they ran out of water and they're going to be here in a couple of years.
Yeah, and they were. There's indication he was getting injected with things and all that. You know, it's you know, when he was in the mental institution, that like there were other groups. It wasn't just Air Force. Doty, to play devil's advocate for Doty, he might have been the patsy for this. He's the bad guy that, you know, got Benowitz going. He got integrated with him. But he might not have been the guy that drove him crazy. There might have been other people like NRO, NSA, whoever, another Valerie Ransone or Tim Taylor coming by that really did the job on him, because it was still beneficial for them to kind of turn Benowitz into a useful asset that could put out disinformation or be a warning. You ask me what I think of like Chris Bledsoe, I think he's another Benowitz.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I think so. I think, you know, from the way the Mirage Man documentary posted it, though, the way they portrayed him is as a conduit of disinformation to poison the well of the UFO community, to throw off the Soviet spies.
That's possible. Yeah,
that were embedded in the UFO community.
The worst part is I'm a guy. I'm just a dude.
Yeah,
you're just a dude. I presume. Right. I don't know if you're working for anybody. I don't care. You're a nice guy. Yeah, I know. Yeah. We'll never know. We'll never know at the top level what's actually going on at the NRO or NSA.
Right.
You can never scratch that itch, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So could it be? Sure, it could be. But it's not aliens. I mean, that doesn't look anything like aliens to me.
And you told me something about how that documentary had something to do with British intelligence.
Yeah. Did you check that out when I sent it to you?
I couldn't find it.
You couldn't find? Oh, okay. So
did you send it to me?
I did send it. Yeah. I followed right up on that. Yeah.
Okay. I never saw it.
Okay. So there's a guy in Great Britain, Richard D. Hall. He does a program called Rich Planet, and he exposed that the guy that did Mirage Men, there's two guys, I think it was Lundberg and Pilkington. Lundberg was working with British intelligence. He was living in a British intelligence paid for house and flat. And he was doing, he and Pilkington, I believe, both were doing fake crop circles. And that had been a project through their Circle Makers site, that this was a thing being funded by the British intelligence, and it was integrated somehow with Air Force intelligence as well. Their servers, some of them were like on Air Force base areas. So how that goes together, I have no freaking clue. But I know these guys have ties to intelligence, and then they come out with Mirage Men, the book, which I have and read, and then the documentary, and you're like, what game are they playing? Like, what spy versus spy thing are they playing here with this?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, but it's ultimately the UFO stuff. The first UFO book came out it was a British book. It came out in 1950. The first UFO documentary came out along with it, like a media propaganda campaign that was named the same thing, called The Flying Saucer. And they came out after Henry Tizard and the British high royalty, admiralty, whatever the freak they considered it at that time, needed to do disinformation to cover up what was going on with the German technology they had gotten. And then later, I think it was a year or two later, Tizard came over to Montreal, kicked off MK Ultra by meeting with CIA and Oman Salant from Canada. And that's when you get the McGill University CIA study, or McGill University MK Ultra studies. It was a joint project. It wasn't just the CIA. It wasn't German. The guys that were running MK Ultra in the CIA were Jewish. Sidney Gottlieb and Jolly and West were Jewish guys. They weren't Germans. They weren't coming over as part of Project Paperclip.
Right.
But how does it all integrate and weave together up to British intelligence? We don't you can't get that high to know what the actual overall was about it. But it's been going forever.
Have you read Chaos by Tom O'Neill?
Yeah, it's good. It's real good. The documentary is good too. Yeah.
That is. Oh, I haven't even seen the documentary yet. I need to watch it. It just came out.
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah. With who was it? Errol Morris was the one who put that thing together.
Again, British guy, right?
I don't think Errol's British. No. Is Errol Morris British? That's Hamilton's dad. He's done a lot of really good documentaries.
Nice. Yeah, I like that a lot. It was they had, what was it? Is it O'Neill that did?
Tom O'Neill's the one who wrote the book.
Yeah, I read the book, the original book. He's got a lot more detail on Jolly and how far he got with things. There was that the one guy at his base that he made go off and kill a little girl. That was a Jolly and West op, and then the timing of it was that this guy goes and does psychological work with Jolly and West a couple days before that, goes off and is found walking up from a quarry where a little girl was killed. They arrest him for it as whatever, and then Jolly and West magically gets all the leeway and funding he needs right after that. It was like a proof of concept. It's sick.
And he found, and Tom found out that Haight-Ashbury Clinic was directly was funded by a CIA cutout.
Yeah, that was Jolyon, and then he had his crash pad there as well.
And they were doing all this testing with psychedelics and amphetamines together.
Yep.
With these people.
Yep.
With Manson and bringing those girls up there all the time.
He was doing it all over. He was a mover and shaker. He was involved with things all over the country. You want to know something really cool about Jolyon West? Again, an exclusive for Danny Jones. Check out LA-78, Nike missile silo.
LA-78.
I think it's
Nike missile silo?
Nike missile silo. I think it's LA-78. Should pop up on Google. This is good. This is worth it.
Okay, is this it?
That's it.
Battery site, Los Angeles?
Yep. If you pull that up, actually, you could probably pull that up on Google Maps and get like a 3D view of where that is. Nowadays, it's supposedly being used as a firefighting facility. Well, they don't even have it. I've got a view of it. It's in the Malibu Hills. Jolyon West petitioned Stubblebine, who was...
You can find it, Steve.
Yeah.
Oh, Stubblebine's the guy who offered Greer like $2 billion.
Go with this. Stubblebine's, I believe it was his brother, was the head of California Human Health and Services. Jolyon West petitioned him to get use of this Nike missile silo as an underground MK Ultra facility to bring in runaways and prisoners and people from various walks of life that wouldn't be missed and test on them in this Nike missile site. And now it's being used as a firefighting facility. But I believe that same Stubblebine was the brother of General Stubblebine, who is the Greer guy, who was the head of INSCOM and who was John Alexander's, daddy, and started off all the shit with the Monroe Institute, which is another continuation of MK Ultra. Bob Monroe was mentored and took the technology from Andrea Puharish, who was his buddy.
Wow.
It all weaves together. Everything we have out here in pop culture about these subjects weaves together in some really effed up ways.
Yeah. Some of the stuff Greer says is so crazy, and he's like a guy who he's really easy to dismiss.
See, I've got that printout papers there for you.
Which ones?
It should be below the rain sown stuff.
These.
Yeah, if you want to pull that up.
But he's been on this stuff for so long.
He has, and he's never produced anything of actual worth. There you go. There's a good one. I thought you might appreciate that. May not be something you want to put.
Emily and Stephen Greer, Haifa, Israel. Emily Kramer and Stephen Greer were married Saturday at Baha'i World Center. The bride is the daughter of Miss Douglas Kramer of Palm Beach, Florida, and the late Dr. Cromler. She graduated from the University of Pennsylvania and received a master's degree in occupational therapy from Boston University. She was employed by the Peace Corps in Barbados. The bridegroom is the son of Mr. and Mrs. James Greer of 1201 Princeton Avenue. He attended the Appalachian State University and is employed in the Information Processing Department at Baha'i World Center. After a trip through Israel, the couple will live in Haifa and work at the Baha'i World Center.
Yep. That's the original marriage notice. Baha'i was regarded as an intelligence gathering operation for Mossad.
And Stephen Greer worked for these people.
And he worked for them. He started with those people. Then he got funded.
This is before he was an emergency room doctor?
I've done a lot of research on Stephen Greer. I don't want to make any claims that get me in any kind of trouble about Stephen Greer, but it doesn't look to me like he had enough time to even do medical school and a residency. And certainly the old newspaper articles don't refer to him as Dr. Greer. It's like he goes right into UFO stuff. So if he worked, there's indication he worked for a very short time at a small hospital in western North Carolina and then went directly into shilling UFOs for Rockefeller.
Holy shit.
Now, if you go to the next page, that's one you might not want to. Don't say
rights.
It out loud. No, you don't want to say it.
Why can't I say it?
Okay.
Rights,
it's your podcast, man.
Rights of homosexuals, opposite opinions, the National AIDS Hysteria Awareness Test. Okay. We thank you for publishing Associated Press coverage of the October 11th March on Washington for gay and lesbian civil rights. However, as part of our 75 marchers from Asheville, we would like to correct the important inaccuracy. Okay, so what is this about?
So that's an op-ed piece that Stephen Greer wrote about himself, and you can see the highlighted portions there.
Okay. Oh, the highlighted portions. We feel that the struggle for our civil rights as gay and lesbian citizens is intricately linked to all struggles against racism, sexism, and anti-Semitism in the country and worldwide. We have fought and died for this country. We are its doctors. Signed by Dr. Stephen M. Greer, MD of Asheville.
Now, I have absolutely nothing against homosexual rights, anything like that. I completely agree with the premise.
Yeah.
But if someone's living a double life and doesn't bring that out and own that in this world, and you want to be believed about briefing the CIA and the president and all these people on UFOs, that's a little, his early life doesn't add up to me. Yeah. And look at the date on that versus the marriage.
He's not Jewish, is he?
I don't know. It may be.
Well, yeah, what's the date? Where's the date? Oh, October 16th, 1987.
And when's the marriage?
The marriage was...
I think you put it down.
The marriage was August 30th, 1979. Wow.
So what's his story? It doesn't add up if you go through old newspaper archives. That's all I can say. I don't want to editorialize it or give my opinion about, but he has never presented anything that worked out. The little Atacama alien, the any of that. He has been saying the same shit for decades and being given a platform, almost like a behavioral conditioning program.
Every one of his podcasts does millions of views too.
Is it organic? One thing I've noticed with social media,
it might be, but it might. Yeah,
a lot of bots. A lot of bots. A lot of media companies that will push you and make you look like you're bigger than you are, but it's hollow engagement.
I've been noticing so many of these bots lately. Yeah. There's like I feel like lately, I don't know how else to say this, but it seems like anti-Semitism is in vogue right now on social media.
Certainly, yeah.
I watched a video, a clip from the Joe Rogan podcast the other day, and it was like him and a bunch of his buddies talking about the JFK files or whatever. And then one of, I think it was Ar Shafir maybe, brought up all like the Israel connections in the JFK files that just came out.
Sure.
And then Joe said something else or whatever. And almost every fucking comment in that episode was like, essentially like, if anyone ever mentions JFK and doesn't bring up Israel, I don't believe you anymore. And it's all like, Joe's an op because it changed the subject when this guy brought up Israel. It's like, Israel is behind everything now.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of hateful stuff jump up in the comments that looks like, you look into the person posting it and they don't even have a real account.
Yeah. My point is it doesn't feel organic.
No,
it feels unnatural.
You can't not look into socioeconomic and world global issues and not see the Mossad in some things.
100%.
Of course.
But
that is not to take it into everything. It's just, if the data's not there, then you shouldn't be looking for phantoms just as a boogeyman to look for. But certainly Mossad was into a lot of shit that they shouldn't have been, including, you asked about Puharish and Uri Geller. Puharish went over to Israel and met with Uri Geller at the behest of a Mossad colonel, met him, was hooked up with him to bring over to the United States. James Randi, there's indication that he may have been part of two sides to that same op that would go back and forth on one another in the media to discredit the whole thing. But Puharish came back and started doing his testing on children the same week. And that was after his trip to Israel. It's like somebody gave him the green light. And it's like, who the fuck is running this?
My mind is always going overdrive on this Israel stuff too. And it makes me wonder about this sort of like deep state war, if you want to call it that, over Donald Trump. And if there's one thing that we know is absolutely true, is that the CIA hates the Mossad. The CIA and the Mossad do not get along.
Is that like obvious to all of us? Because it looks to me like they're two sides of the same coin.
It's pretty obvious to me talking to a lot of former CIA operators. And when I ask them about Israel and when I ask them about the Mossad, it's just constant fucking frustration with these people.
It may be, yeah. I hate thinking that the CIA are traitors. I would love to believe that there are actually patriotic people within these organizations and that they're as frustrated with shit, Epstein's, as we are. I don't know. I don't know Bustamante. You know, I don't know any of the people you've had on the podcast. I couldn't tell you, but like, damn, it's a dark world where you think that you need to look over your shoulder even at your own people that are supposed to protect you. And I don't know.
Yeah. And anyways, like, so based on that, like based on just the feedback that I've gotten and what I've learned about this, it feels like just a hatred combined with like an annoyance of the CIA and the Mossad, because the Mossad is admittedly by a lot of CIA people way more advanced and way more effective than the CIA. For whatever reasons. Obviously they have a history and, you know, they want to ensure the survival of their race, and, you know, a lot of it for good reason. But it is argued, and it's, you know, legitimate, that at times they've gone way too far. And if you have this sort of intelligence war happening behind the scenes with Trump, and you have what it seems like coming out in the news now with people like RFK and Trump being like highly funded by Israel with like the Adelsons and all this blackmail that they have on everybody. And you have that document that came out, I think it was in 2020, where it was like 40 something CIA agents signed off on Donald Trump. What was that about again? It was, there was like 43 or 47 CIA agents signed off on the Russiagate thing.
That it was real or not?
That it was real, and it was proved later to be false. Or maybe they signed off on that. Maybe that was the Hunter Biden laptop story. And either way, I think that has something to do with some sort of internal CIA versus Mossad thing.
It may. Yeah, I have no purview into that. I know, like, Virginia Khafre just went into a...
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's like, well, okay, that's one. Isn't that interesting, the correlation with that and when the Epstein documents were supposed to come out?
So Virginia Khafre just got hit by a bus or something, and she apparently has a couple days to live. Can you find this article, Steve?
Happens all the time. Nothing suspicious about that.
I don't know what the fuck to think about that, but that is completely batshit
What it
insane.
looks like is somebody got an early version of the Epstein documents, and then they decided to do some cleanup.
Yeah, and then you had this alleged leak of these Epstein files that were supposedly all brand new. No one's seen any of this stuff before. You had these people, these influencers standing outside of that building, like with their phones, TikToking about how they have this, you know, all these Epstein files that, like, the shit's been out forever.
Yeah, it has been. Yeah, and it's funny because, like, I'm wearing the shirt. The shirt's a joke. Everybody, the shirt's a joke.
Make conspiracies great again.
I don't vote. I don't believe in either side. I'm like George Carlin. I have, you know, divorced myself from elections and all this.
Yeah.
But it's awfully interesting that it goes back to Maxwell's daddy, who published that book, and the plotting to make that come true. If you read that book, I'll leave it with you, man. You can just have it.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just print another one. Read that book. And anybody else that wants to read that book,
Changing Images of Man,
go to my website, go to our blog. It's the PDF is up there for absolutely free. And they're laying it all out. And it was Maxwell's father, but Maxwell's father wasn't just Israeli Mossad. He was British intelligence first. He was like, it all is Mossad, is Israel acting as a proxy, as a cutout essentially for British intelligence, or are they doing their own thing? Is this one big unit that they're all doing this because they were interacting together for MKUltra with the CIA? It was all connected, or are they truly at odds? Is Israel? Do they have strings? Are they Pinocchio? You know, are they a little puppet for Great Britain? It started with the Balfour Declaration. It started with being given the land down there. So I don't know what the motives are. I don't know how they interact with the CIA. I'm not Bustamante. I don't know any of this.
Yeah.
All I know is it is hyped up a lot on the internet. To your point, it is. There is a lot of anti-Semitism, and there is a lot of, like, the Jewish family down the street doesn't have a goddamn thing to do with any of this. They never did.
Yeah, I think a lot of these people, like, don't have any Jewish friends or didn't come up in a place like New York or like. It's some of this stuff. Like I said, to me it just feels unnatural.
It seems.
It doesn't feel genuine, some of the stuff that you see. And I'm just talking about comments, too. I'm not talking about, like, real people I talk to.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think I believe the dead internet theory. I think most of the interaction, as a guy who built bots, like I literally worked building AI bots and interaction, you know, that was non-human. Most of the internet just stinks of just being bots, especially on I'm not going to name the app, but it's got, you're on there following me. We follow one another on that app. I can't name it because they already shadow banned the shit out of me.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh, our stuff is horribly messed with. And our viewers have been like dead for like a year and a half. It's been straight across. Like we should be much.
Talking about YouTube?
No.
Okay.
Not YouTube, not Instagram, but I'm not going to say it because they'll just fucking take the account down.
Really?
Yeah. And they, people will follow us and they'll pop in and either we'll get an email or a DM and they'll say, I followed you. And then I had to refollow you because they removed my follow or removed my
I get
link.
that all the time.
Yeah. It's like, come on.
Yeah. Well, Google was quite literally created and incubated by the CIA, which is crazy.
Yep. Absolutely.
And it was like DARPA technology. The PageRank system was DARPA technology, and like Sergey Brin was getting visited by CIA and NSA people the whole time when he was developing that.
Yep. Yeah.
And like
Meta as well. There's lots of ties there. I don't think any of it. ARPANET. It's all fed. It has always been fed. That was always the point. Is this cybernetic linking of people together to control them, and it's going to go one step further now that we have the Neuralink. Neuralink is old technology. You don't need a brain implant anymore. But they're going to pretend like it to get you to adopt it. They're going to pretend that this is the next development, even though it's old. The guy who mapped out the human brain for the Navy was working for SAR, S-A-R-A. His name was Dr. Richard Dickout. He was working with John Alexander. They put in the equipment at Skinwalker Ranch, and he was mapping brain patterns to map out like speech and such. Like if you're talking to yourself in your head, like that's a brain pattern. And they
internal dialogue.
Yeah, and they figured out how to back engineer that. This is Dr. Richard Dickout in Albuquerque, and that's a technology they've had. And this was like the 80s. And Jacques Vallée talks about that. John Alexander talks about it himself in his own book, Future War. Like they've been developing this for a long time. The ability to get in your head. You had Robert Duncan on your show not so long ago.
Yeah, you listened to that one?
Yeah, and unfortunately he passed away last year.
I saw that.
Yeah, he was.
What do you make of that?
He was here.
A lot of people were telling me that was fake, that he wasn't really who he says he was.
He might not have been.
His email, he was emailing me before we did that podcast, and his email was a harvard.edu email.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense.
I mean, maybe you can fake that if you're like really technical.
No, if he's still involved with the university, possibly. He might not have been. I've gotten that hint as well. But he was saying some real things. How much of it is mixed 80-20 with bullshit and the truth? I don't know.
Right.
And that's the tangle that we live in this, in these subjects, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff he was telling you was absolutely correct. They are getting in people's heads. The technology, the chain of the document chain that goes back decades is there. They've been figuring this out forever and admitting to it.
Where do you think all of it goes?
Into a linked cyber. Okay, I'll give you my grand unified theory of all this shit.
Okay.
MK Ultra was being done on one side, and on the other side, you had the John Calhoun National Institute of Mental Health rat studies. Are you familiar with the mouse utopia?
No.
Okay. Dr. Calhoun with NIMH. It's the old Secret of Nim cartoon that they had when we were all kids. You ever see this? Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim. They made it into a cartoon. Dr. Calhoun did like 40 years of research into this, building these specialized mouse utopias enclosures for tons of mice. You put them in. Steve can look this all up. Yeah, look up John Calhoun. That's that's. Oh, wow. I don't know why they came out with this, but the research.
Secret NIM.
Yeah, look up John Calhoun NIMH or mouse utopia. This is important for the world, for everybody to understand this.
Okay.
There it is.
Okay.
And there's Dr. Calhoun. Living or working in his mouse utopia, a giant enclosure.
Wow, look at that thing. Yeah.
And
Steve, blow that up.
He'd bring up generations of mice within this and study how their behaviors would change as they interact with one another more and more often.
Okay.
So as the population would grow, he'd find out that if he provided all the space they needed, all the food they needed, accommodated everything they needed, simply by interacting with one another on a prolonged basis, always being up one another's asses, they would develop things like social autism. They would develop all these behavioral changes that were lasting, and eventually, a generation or two later, they led to the die-off of the mice within that enclosure, and then he'd have to restart the experiment again. This was being funded by the CIA. NIMH was a CIA outfit. They were being funded by it along with MK Ultra. I wonder at the top of it if somebody at the CIA saw our society going to the point where we're integrated with all this technology up each other's asses, just like the mice, developing all these behavioral issues, the inability to mate and procreate correctly together without all this constant headbutting, without all these constant problems. And the behavioral issues that come along with it, autism, ADHD, neurodivergence, all these things, just like the mice were exhibiting. I wonder if somebody saw that coming a mile away and tried to come up with ways to save humanity from that happening. Because Calhoun's estimate was 2030 to 2035, we would have a full-scale societal die-off because of this. It's not just population growth. People misunderstand that. It's interaction within those dense groups of population that cause these problems. And then eventually something comes out. It's like a switch is flipped biologically, and we all die off. And I think they were trying to keep it from happening. And if that's the case, I agree. Maybe they didn't do it right, but something needed to be done about this. But look into the work of Calhoun. It's terrifying, and we're at the end stages of it already. And it was CIA funded.
And you think some of the research was to sort of mitigate this from happening?
Yes, I hope. I hope it's not just sociopaths in charge of all of this that just want to control everybody.
Because you certainly need a large population to be a powerful nation state on the world stage.
Yeah, but
that's really important.
We're not overpopulated anywhere. There's space everywhere for people.
Yeah.
But the interaction with people, especially with social media, your phone, internet and all that interaction, those constant shitty comments, the constant interaction with this, the constant somebody's giving you a call you didn't want to talk to, the constant, do you need a warranty on your car call? It rubs away at our nervous systems and creates these problems, especially generationally. You'll have kids that have these problems, and then they're lasting if it's born into them. And Calhoun's research was terrifying on that. He thought we could turn it around in the 80s, and we didn't.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I think these are mitigation strategies.
Yeah, you certainly see it. I don't know. I haven't been to a ton of other countries and studied their culture or their social interactions, but it certainly seems like the division here has been like gasoline on fire with social media.
Yeah.
And just like there's no sort of like national identity here or any sort of thing that like binds us all together with a specific worldview, like some other like Israel has or some other countries may have.
Yep.
And I think a lot of that probably has to do with foreign intelligence and foreign countries trying to use their warfare to try to
changing image of the man. It's a how-to guide to make that happen, to get us to go away from old-fashioned cohesiveness into something where you see it even among like the stuff that we talk about, like witchy, esoteric, spiritual kind of beliefs. Okay, like the Judaism is coherent. Christianity is fairly coherent. Okay, Islam is fairly coherent. Spiritual, as they lay out in that book, is a grab bag of everything.
Yeah.
There's no cohesion.
Right.
And you present something to somebody, they might go flitting off onto that. It makes, it's just like Dr. They. You don't know what's real, and you can lead people wherever you want them based on whatever the stimulus is that day.
Yeah.
That takes them in a direction, and they're not going to be beholden to like their upbringing as a Jew or a Christian or a Muslim. They're gonna flit off, and that's what the new spirituality seems to be about for me.
Have you noticed or seen any of the recent articles on how Silicon Valley is trying to? There's like a new movement in Silicon Valley to map Christianity onto everything that's going on there.
No, I haven't seen that.
There's a huge Christian movement in Silicon Valley, and it's mainly being driven by Peter Thiel and the guy who is the head of a company called Y Combinator, which is it's like a Silicon Valley kingmaker. And these guys are holding conferences, not spiritual, but basically Christian conferences. And there's a huge church in Silicon Valley people are going to. And this is, I think, I don't know what it is, but Thiel, just think of Thiel. He's a gay Christian billionaire. And I think his theory is that we need like some American, like a united religion. And when you're in Silicon Valley and you're developing and innovating some of the most advanced technology in the world, including AI, these people don't believe in anything. I mean, Silicon Valley, the history of Silicon Valley has been anti-Christian for the most part, or anti-religious.
Yep.
So the fact that there's this movement to really push Christianity in Silicon Valley, to me, is really interesting, and especially when you tie that into a lot of these huge companies that are military contractors.
Yeah. It's so.
What was the other one? Anduril, I think it was.
Anduril, yeah, I've heard. So I had a lot of experience in Silicon Valley. I used to fly down there and consult all the time. I have interaction with all these companies, Google, etc. They do have a spirituality. It's just not cohesive. It's spirituality. It's not. It's not a religion. It's a spiritual. Right. So to turn that into, I don't know, what was he doing? Beta testing with Scientology to create the new cult that he would push out? Like what has led up to that? Did he just come out with it, out of his ass? Or?
No, I think this has been something that has been percolating with him for maybe for a while, but these articles have started to come out like in the last year or so.
Because he's another Fed setup, in my opinion. He's another Elon Musk who has a fake background that he just kind of showed up and made a couple $2 billion out of the blue, and doesn't seem to even run his companies. Is that a setup? Is he pushing what has been given to him to now he is the figurehead for this?
Does he believe that impregnating Christianity into Silicon Valley and into American culture will improve national security?
Against who? I mean, so
against some sort of, in his mind, against some sort of woke one world government.
Maybe, yeah. So what all this seems to do,
if that idea of this extreme left woke one world government, World Economic Forum takes hold, and if you want to use your imagination and extrapolate that to like if they start imprisoning people for violating climate change laws or something like that, right? Maybe that could be one of his fears.
Sure. Is the World Economic Forum even real? I remember when nobody ever heard about it. Nobody heard about Klaus Schwab. He just kind of popped up one day, and he's the big bad guy, and he speaks with a German accent. Oh, heavens. Are they swinging a pendulum back and forth between these two different stimuli for this generation? Back and forth to woke, to Christian, to woke, to Christian, to come up with a synthesis. The Hegelian dialectic, synthesis, or thesis and antithesis become a synthesis in the middle of what they actually want. But they swing it to extremes so that they can push that center thing more and get people to adopt that more, where wokeism and far left and far right coagulate in the middle into something that they can control. None of it looks organic to me. I mean, you asked me about this. I don't know Thiel. I don't know his motivations. If he's got all the money in the world, he didn't just get it because he got it. He got it because he was given it. He was led to the top like everybody else is led to the top. He's got it from somewhere. He's pushing an agenda. Is he just acting as, the right and the left, going back and forth, the two stimulus that'll come together into something that is more like the changing images of men? I don't know. I wish I did. I wish I had the answer to all this shit. The politics right now it's what we talked about. It's as maddening as you don't know what is real anymore. Right. You don't know what these motivations are. All I know is that for decades, they have been coming up with ways to control your mind while you're being fed it.
Scary fucking shit.
The lying signs and wonders that they have come up with to get everybody to accept whatever the stimulus is terrifying. Yeah, it really points to like humans not having any real free will or agency in their own lives anymore. It's what
do we do? What do we do? We got to move to the Amazon?
I have no fucking idea. No idea. Try to tell people, get up here, make myself a target on camera to tell people as much as I can about it. I don't know if you saw the Elon Musk clip that was going around about like somebody asked him about world peace, and he gets really sullen and he goes, you have to be really careful. You don't want what has to be given up to get world peace. You might not want to give that up. And what that is your agency and your free will. Right. So it's the cybernetic linking of everybody so that you can't fight anymore is the neutering of the world, the neutering of society. And that's what we're looking at. And it'll be technological. And he's part of it. He should know. He's heading up the companies that are going to do it.
What do you make of Greer's theory, or he doesn't call it a theory, obviously. He says he knows it for a fact.
Of course he does.
That there is like some rogue military industrial private company that basically has its own autonomous air force, navy, and military that is basically has such powerful technology that they've figured out with like anti-gravity or who knows what, that they won't even let the United States military see it or know anything about it because it is more powerful than every single military on the face of the earth combined.
Bullshit. Okay, so I am all for. I know that Rockefeller funded Greer and Bigelow and all the UFO group. Scott Jones, CB Scott Jones. He funded Linda Moulton Howe, all these people to go out and spread this UFO message.
Who funded Lyndon Moulton Howe?
Rockefeller.
Oh,
Lawrence Rockefeller. Larry Rockefeller. Good old Larry Rockefeller.
Yeah.
There's pictures of him standing at his ranch with him, Hillary Clinton.
I seen the picture of Hillary Clinton with what was the book she had? She had some UFO book.
Yeah, it was some kind of like, Cosmic Civilizations Collide or whatever the hell it is. I would think that was him pushing his, because he was involved with all the aerospace companies. Mm-hmm. So if he's got if Northrop or McDonnell Douglas or Boeing or somebody has like this technology and they kept it in those companies so that you couldn't freedom of information request anything about it. You couldn't so the military couldn't find it, but they're intimately linked. So the public couldn't find it by going through the military or government. You put it into a black box. In that case, then those companies do have that technology. Skunk Works does have its own Air Force. We just don't know about it.
Right. And then but my point is like, if they got that technology and they advanced it so far that basically we could tell the military, or they could tell the military, fuck you, and hold them hostage.
I don't think they have to, because the people that sit on the board of directors for those companies run the military and the government.
Oh, shit.
I think it's above that. I think it doesn't, the money people that were funding Puharish and MK Ultra were the Astors and the Bronfmans and British high society and the Eastern establishment of old money. It wasn't even military. It wasn't even government. It was funded above that with like all these old families.
Yeah.
But they're all on the boards of all these different companies.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like there truly is a partition between the two. The government, the military, are a dog and pony show. They're a show. They're just a show for the people who really have the power above that. I just don't believe that they actually hold the power they think they do. They're always. I've seen letters go back and forth between like high command and militaries to like Rockefeller saying yes or no, sir, just acting like a little bitch. Like, don't you have the guns?
Wow.
What are you talking? Like this guy? He's going to ruin your career? Oh, okay. You really want that pension? Pussy. That's like traitorous to me. Mm-hmm. But the power is with those people. It's above the government.
It's the money.
It's the money. So
money's the root of all evil. I knew it.
Greer would know. Well, no. I mean, control. It's like you would want to control the herd. They've been controlling the herd for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. Greer knows better than anybody because he's been in bed with them forever. He's been in bed with Rockefeller. He's been in bed with Bootsy Galbraith and all these people whose names people don't even know. Like Puharish and the Astors and all these, like they were always funded by somebody who was like, Puharish died on the estate of R.J. Reynolds, the heir to the Reynolds tobacco fortune. And he was doing mind control research on R.J. Reynolds' private property. That was R.J. Reynolds doing the research with Henry Belk, who owns Belk department stores. MK Ultra work separate of the government, separate of the military. So is it above that? Sure. Do I think that there's some rich son of a bitch in Dubai or, the Great Britain that is flying around in a UFO? Maybe. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Whatever.
Good Lord, man. Crazy shit.
Yeah.
Brent, thank you for doing this, man. This has been incredible. Crazy deep dive into this stuff. I didn't know about any of this stuff, frankly.
Yeah. I kind of go in some directions, don't I?
You are very a unique individual because the reason you stand out to me is because you actually do the hard work and like actually dig into stuff that seems like it's so easy, but nobody wants to do.
It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. Fortunately, I retired, so I did well enough that I was able to put money and time into this, where I might have a leg up. Most people don't. I can spend 8 hours reading through some document store. But everybody can find it. Everybody can look, and you can look at what I put out. I don't want anybody to believe me. I'm not a Greer. I'm not a big Chris Bledsoe. Don't believe my story. Look at the data I'm presenting you. That's all I want. And Danny, thanks for the opportunity, man.
Fantastic.
It's great talking to you.
What's your YouTube channel and your other social medias that we can link?
Across all platforms, it's at Museum of Tarot.
At Museum of Tarot.
And museumoftarot.com if you want to check out any of our products that you can't get anywhere else that have been suppressed, and our books and all that.
Beautiful. Thanks again, man. I appreciate it.
My friend.
Good night, world.